My niece was teased with the nickname, Dairy Cow, due to her overly developed figure. I helped her regulate her body back to a normal state, but in a fit of rage, my niece killed me, believing I had destroyed her physical assets. Given a second chance, both my niece and I were reborn into this life. My niece cursed me as cruel and fought desperately against the treatment. I poured out the precious herbal medicine and said coldly, "Then we won't treat it." My niece excitedly fantasized about using her body to marry into a wealthy family, but she didn't know that malformed growth attracts flies, not butterflies. When my niece Lu Lingxue furiously knocked over the bowl of traditional medicine and cursed me for trying to ruin her life, I knew she had been reborn too. In her past life, Lu Lingxue suffered from a developmental deformity, despite being a teenage girl. Certain parts of her body were more developed than those of a woman who had borne 3 children. The boys at school gave my niece all sorts of cruel nicknames, like Dairy Cow and Big Butt, each one more vicious than the last. My niece was at that sensitive age of adolescence. She secretly held on to me and cried several times. I couldn't bear to see her being mocked, so I was determined to help her. I spent over 100,000 in total on her treatment before her development finally got back on track. At first, Lu Lingxue was deeply grateful to me, but as she grew into adulthood, she gradually came to resent me. She believes I ruined her physical assets, robbing her not only of the mockery but also of men's attention. The deformed body that once caused her immense shame, after resuming normal development, became a treasure her niece could never obtain. She glared at me with venom, as if looking at a mortal enemy. Who gave you the right to adjust me without permission? You've ruined my entire life. All the other girls with good figures have landed rich boyfriends. My body is even more voluptuous than theirs. I despise you. Men only pay attention to me because of my overdeveloped body. I feel utterly worthless now. I can't understand her, using a deformed body to please men, even if it catches their eye for a moment, only earns the kind of dismissive, condescending attention you'd give to a pet. Just as a daughter vine clings and climbs, it can never command the mighty tree to bow in submission. But Lu Lingxue didn't see it that way. She began frantically eating papayas and drinking all sorts of dairy products, desperate to regain her former, misshapen figure. It was no use. After her recovery, the binge eating only caused Lu Lingxue to gradually balloon into a 200-pound woman. And the boyfriends she managed to find would always break up with her in a hurry. After being dumped by her boyfriend yet again, Lu Lingxue's hatred for me reached its peak. She slipped a heavy dose of sleeping pills into my water, then locked me in the room and set the house on fire. As the searing heat scorched my body, in my final moment of consciousness, I saw her grinning maniacally, her eyes alight with the thrill of vengeance. Die, you ruined my life, you deserve this. I refuse to take any more of this medicine. Don't you dare try to ruin me, you vile woman. The sight of Lu Lingxue's vicious cursing overlapped with memories from my past life, causing me to frown in displeasure. With a flick of my wrist, I poured every last drop of the potent, precious herbal concoction into the trash. I set the bowl down, looked at the stunned Lu Lingxue, and said coldly, "I'm done with the treatment, for good, no matter how deformed Lu Lingxue might become in the future. I will never lift a finger to treat her." Lu Lingxue shot me a suspicious look, then sneered contemptuously, "What new trick are you trying to pull?" I rubbed my temples with a self-deprecating sigh. Lu Lingxue didn't trust me. To prove my resolve, I sold off all the Chinese herbs I had stockpiled at home at a low price and cleared out the room that had always been used to brew her medicine. Seeing my series of actions, Lu Lingxue finally breathed a sigh of relief. I heard her jumping for joy and talking to herself in excitement. Perfect. With a killer body in this lifetime, I'm sure to find a high-quality boyfriend. Hearing that, I couldn't help but laugh inwardly. I laughed at Lu Lingxue's naivety. She didn't realize that a malformed body doesn't attract butterflies, only flies. A few weeks later, I received a call from Lu Lingxue's homeroom teacher, asking me to come to the school to discipline her. I cut the teacher off with a flat tone, telling her to go find Lu Lingxue's biological parents. I've already done more than enough for Lu Lingxue. I have no intention of getting involved in her affairs for the rest of my life. The teacher, however, said she had already called the girl's brother and sister-in-law, and that the two of them simply didn't care about Lu Lingxue. A cold laugh echoed in my mind. Lu Lingxue and I are only 8 years apart. I'm more like an older sister to her than an aunt. The moment I became self-sufficient, my brother and sister-in-law couldn't wait to dump Lu Lingxue on me. They didn't even provide a penny for her living expenses, showing no concern that we might starve on the streets. They were certain I had a soft heart and would never abandon Ling Xue. With feigned sincerity, they said, "We'll remember your kindness to Ling Xue and repay you someday." But in my past life, after I died, my brother and sister-in-law, for the sake of an accidental death insurance payout, chose to cover up the truth without hesitation, even though they knew full well that Lu Lingxue was the one who set the fire that killed me. With that money in hand, they sailed smoothly through the rest of their lives. It was then I realized my brother and his wife were nothing but beasts, with nothing but money on their minds and in their hearts. The hatred from my past life surged within me. Clenching my fists, I swore to myself that in this life, I would never let this family off easy. I rushed to the school and listened as the homeroom teacher recounted Lu Lingxue's recent outrageous and promiscuous behavior, a cold smirk curling my lips. Without me there to regulate Lu Lingxue's growth rate, her body quickly reverted to its previous abnormal development pace. The areas that were developing swelled up rapidly, like balloons being inflated. The boys at school had their eyes on Lu Lingxue again, whether it was during the long break, PE class, or after school. A crowd of excited boys would trail behind her, laughing and pointing with suggestive looks. The Lu Lingxue from her past life would have found this humiliating and upsetting, but this version of Lu Lingxue didn't feel offended in the slightest. On the contrary, she thoroughly enjoyed the sensation of being surrounded and becoming the center of attention. She strutted ahead of the group of boys, her back ramrod straight, feeling particularly smug as she listened to their whoops and hollers. Lu Lingxue's unusual figure caused quite a stir in the class, which eventually caught the homeroom teacher's attention. The homeroom teacher severely punished the boys who had given Lu Lingxue nasty nicknames and made crude jokes, then called Lu Lingxue into the office, intending to offer her some guidance. To the teacher's surprise, Lu Lingxue not only failed to show any gratitude, but instead complained that the teacher was meddling and trying to ruin her chances of finding a good boyfriend. She wrote an anonymous letter to the principal's email, accusing the homeroom teacher of having an inappropriate relationship with a male student in the class, all because she was jealous of the girl's popularity with the boys. By the end of her tirade, the homeroom teacher's eyes were red with fury. Just as expected, an ingrate like Lu Lingxue always repays kindness with vindictive retaliation. I remembered the utter helplessness and despair from my past life when I was engulfed in flames. My fingernails digging deep into my palms, I smiled at the teacher. "Don't worry, teacher, I'll take care of this nuisance, Lu Lingxue." I gave a wry smile. Even if I couldn't repay Lu Lingxue in kind and burn her to death like in my past life, in this life, I was still going to make sure she learned her lesson. 3. I took Lu Lingxue back to my place. On the way, Lu Lingxue smugly showed off the huge pile of gifts she'd received. I listened with a blank expression. Suddenly, Lu Lingxue looked me up and down, her posture dripping with superiority and her tone not without a hint of pity. "Auntie, with a figure like yours, you'll probably never know the joy of receiving gifts from boys." I glanced at Lu Lingxue. Compared to her exaggeratedly voluptuous body, my own tall and slender frame was naturally nothing to speak of. The weather had turned chilly, yet Lu Lingxue was still wearing her thin summer school uniform, after not seeing her for a few weeks. The clothes seemed to have shrunk a size, stretched taut in a way that invited the imagination to wander. Lu Lingxue dangled a sparkling necklace, her eyes brimming with smug satisfaction. "This necklace is made of solid gold, and that crystal-clear stone is genuine jadeite. Song Qingchen from the sports team gave it to me." I paused mid-step, finally catching a familiar name amidst Lu Lingxue's incessant chatter. I feigned nonchalance as I spoke. "Song Qingchen, I know him. The crown prince of the Song group. His family is loaded." I made sure to let just the right amount of envy show on my face. The moment the words left my mouth, Lu Lingxue sprang to her feet. "What did you say?" she shrieked, her face alight with wild delight. "Song Qingchen is the heir to the Song group." I nodded, my tone laced with meaning. "That's right, the one and only son. All the family fortune will be his one day." Lu Lingxue's hands trembled with excitement. Her greatest dream was to find a remarkable man to depend on, and the man before her, Song Qingchen, was undoubtedly her perfect choice. Early the next morning, Lu Lingxue got up and dressed with care, her heart racing as she prepared to rush to school to accept Song Qingchen's confession. But I stopped her. Lu Lingxue shot me an annoyed glare. "Move, I need to get to school," I said with a smile. "You don't need to go to school anymore." I've already arranged a leave of absence for you. In a couple of days, you're leaving with me." Lu Lingshue's eyes widened in shock, and she cried out in a fury, "What gives you the right to put me on leave? Have you no conscience? This is illegal. I'll sue you and make sure you rot in jail." The smile slowly faded from my face, my eyes turning cold and dark. "I have no obligation to support you in the first place. If you don't come with me, you'll be begging on the streets. Who do you think will care for you then?" Lu Lingxue glared at me with pure hatred, looking as if she wanted to tear me apart with her teeth. Suddenly, Lu Lingxue muttered with a strange, contorted expression, "Who says no one cares about me?" Lu Lingxue slipped back to her room and made a call to her brother and sister-in-law, who were far, far away. I, however, suddenly let out a laugh. The plan was halfway complete. My selfish brother and sister-in-law only want to live it up out there. I'm determined to lure you back, so you can suffer in the trap I've laid, right alongside Lu Lingxue. For I knew Lu Lingxue would turn to her brother and sister-in-law for help, and I also knew that their family had actually been in touch with each other in private all these years. Even after Lu Lingxue was cured in my previous life, rumors about her still swirled around the school. Worried that Lu Lingshue's grades would slip, I insisted on transferring her to a school with better resources. That night, unwilling to leave, Lu Lingxue secretly called her brother and sister-in-law, begging them to come back and take her away, but she never expected that her brother and sister-in-law had long since started their own families and had children. They both saw Lu Lingxue as a burden, a millstone around their necks. No matter how hard she cried, they refused to take her in. This lifetime was shaping up to be much the same. Lu Lingxue cursed me venomously for arranging her leave of absence from school. My brother and sister-in-law gave me a severe scolding, accusing me of mistreating their most beloved daughter. Lu Lingxue was deeply moved upon hearing this and quickly said, "Mom, Dad, I don't want my aunt anymore. Please come back and take care of me." My brother and sister-in-law immediately exchanged awkward glances, their faces clouded with reluctance. I knew they were both racking their brains for excuses to refuse. They simply didn't want Lu Lingxue, but not in this lifetime. I won't give them the satisfaction. I raised my voice at the door. "Lu Lingxue, don't think I don't know. The reason you don't want to drop out is because you want to be with that rich kid." My voice carried clearly through the crack in the door, reaching my brother and sister-in-law's ears. They both jolted and asked urgently, "What rich kid?" Lu Lingxue told them smugly that Song Qingchen, the heir to the Song Group empire, was pursuing her. Her brother and sister-in-law's eyes instantly lit up with a calculating gleam. They exchanged a look, and without hesitation, her brother smiled at Lu Lingxue and said, "Sweetheart, your mom and dad have missed you so much. We'll come back tomorrow to take care of you." Her sister-in-law nodded in greedy agreement, her eyes full of avarice. Lu Lingxue was so moved her eyes welled up with tears. After leaving the room, Lu Lingxue announced with a haughty air that her parents would be returning the next day to look after her. Lu Lingxue flashed me a triumphant smile. "Bet you didn't see that coming." The moment my parents heard I missed them, they immediately said they'd come back to take care of me. She clicked her tongue wistfully. "In this world, no one treats me better than my own flesh and blood." I leaned against the doorframe, my face a mask of scorn. "I'm not the least bit surprised. All my brother and his wife care about is money." In her past life, Lu Lingxue had nothing, so the couple couldn't be bothered to spare any time to look after her. But this life is different. Now, Lu Lingxue has a wealthy heir pursuing her. If she just clings tightly to Song Qingchen, she'll marry into riches in the future, and by extension, they could live the good life too, of course. Her brother and sister-in-law are itching to come back. Seeing the look of deep emotion on Lu Lingxue's face, she truly believed her parents loved her dearly. It wasn't until later she discovered that her brother and sister-in-law had only returned for the money. They had long since started their own families and had children elsewhere. It wasn't that they were too busy for Lu Lingxue, they simply didn't want her at all. Just thinking about it fills me with anticipation. 5. Her brother and sister-in-law rushed back, covered in the dust of their journey, bringing Lu Lingxue a whole pile of gifts. She was grinning from ear to ear. Her sister-in-law looked at Lu Lingxue's increasingly prominent figure, hesitating before finally asking, "Lingxue, is it true a rich second-generation heir wants to marry you?" Lu Lingxue immediately straightened her posture and nodded proudly. "Of course. I have such a great figure." Lu Lingxue was lost in her own pride. Oblivious to the abnormality of her own figure, her sister-in-law, however, saw it clearly. Lu Lingshue's physical development was unnatural. Despite being a girl in the bloom of youth, her body had developed to an almost overripe state. The grotesque and exaggerated nature of her development made Lu Lingxue look less like a normal person and more like the protagonist of some cheap erotic novel. This perverse, malformed development would never inspire any man to think of marriage. It would only invite mockery and exploitation. No decent man would ever marry a plaything. My brother shot an impatient glare at his wife. Our daughter has such a great figure. What man wouldn't be captivated by her? Lu Lingxue was pleased to hear this, but then suddenly shot me a resentful look. She grabbed my brother's hand to tattle on me. Dad, I've developed so well, and Auntie is jealous. She wants to make me drink that herbal medicine to ruin my perfect figure. My brother flew into a rage, cursing me for having ulterior motives. Lu Lingxue chimed in venomously, Auntie, don't you dare think I'll take care of you after I marry into a wealthy family. My sister-in-law scanned my apartment, her eyes darting around as she laid out her terms. Xingwei, since you've wronged Lingxue, here's the deal. Give us this apartment and come work as our live-in maid, then I might convince her to forgive you. My brother nodded frantically, his eyes gleaming with greed. Lu Lingxue said with great reluctance, Fine, I suppose I can forgive you under these conditions. After I marry into a wealthy family, I might even throw you a few scraps. Amused by the whole family's little performance, I slowly began to speak. Who needs Lu Lingshue's forgiveness? All I need is for you to pay back the living expenses from all these years. With that, I produced a ledger. I've always kept meticulous records. Every single penny I've spent on Lu Lingxue over the years is accounted for, clear as day. My brother picked up the ledger, and his face darkened. 500,000. How could it possibly be that much? I lowered my eyelids with a cold smile. Of course it was that much. Lu Lingxue was meticulous about everything she ate, wore, and used. I always believed a girl should be raised in luxury, so she wouldn't develop a petty, provincial mindset and later be dazzled by some man's cheap tricks. But I never expected that money to be so poorly spent. A man doesn't even need to resort to tricks. Lu Lingxue would be utterly infatuated with him regardless. My sister-in-law's face fell as she tried to weasel out of paying. We're family, she insisted stubbornly. Why be so petty about money? With a smile, I pulled out a folded piece of paper and waved it. Family, I said meaningfully. Are you sure about that? My brother and sister-in-law's expressions changed instantly. 6. When they dumped Lu Lingxue on me, they were so afraid I'd get entangled with her that they went ahead and wrote a legal document severing all ties with her. All these years, I've never brought it up, for fear of hurting Lu Lingxue, but if I were to produce it, Lu Lingxue would realize her wonderful parents actively chose to abandon her. Her brother and sister-in-law are banking on Lu Lingxue marrying into a wealthy family now. There's no way they'd let her find out about this. My brother slapped my sister-in-law across the face with the back of his hand and roared in fury. What does being family matter? Even brothers keep clear accounts. We can't let Xingwei get the short end of the stick. With that, he gritted his teeth and transferred the 500,000 yuan he had painstakingly saved to me. Lu Lingxue watched the scene in confusion, thinking I had forced her parents to pay child support. Her little face was filled with resentment. She stared at me with a sinister look and threatened me again. Don't expect me to be nice to you in the future. I let out a snort of laughter. I never expected anything from her anyway. I've had more than enough of her so-called kindness from our past life. I dug a finger in my ear and pointed carelessly at the door. It's time you got the hell out of my house. When my sister-in-law first walked in, her eyes were practically glued to the place, now that she was being thrown out. The look on her face was truly a sight to behold. My brother's expression was equally foul. He had just lost 500,000. And every single expense of living on his own was like a knife twisting in his heart. Lu Lingxue, however, was thrilled, overjoyed at finally being free of me and able to live with her birth parents. Lu Lingxue quickly packed her things and sneered at me. I don't want to live in your house. I have my own parents now, and they'll give me a much better life. My brother and sister-in-law, their faces pale, nodded weakly. Before they even stepped out the door, her brother couldn't wait to urge Lu Lingxue to secure that rich second-generation heir, Song Qingchen, and to get engaged as soon as possible. Meanwhile, her sister-in-law was busy arranging to buy Lu Lingxue beautiful new clothes to dress her up. Lu Lingxue cast a smug glance at her enviable figure, waving a hand to reassure them. Don't worry, Mom, Dad. I'll have Song Qingchen wrapped around my finger within 3 days. Last time, He even said he wanted to make me the company's legal representative. He's practically offering the whole business as a betrothal gift. Her eyes lit up. When that happens, I'll be a wealthy socialite, and you'll have more money than you can count. Using the company as a dowry left my brother and sister-in-law utterly speechless. Their jaws practically on the floor from the sudden, staggering display of wealth. The whole family was lost in a collective daydream of a future spent counting money without lifting a finger, each of them unable to suppress a gleeful chuckle. I nearly laughed myself sick. Putting Lu Lingxue in as the company's legal representative, Song Qingchen truly didn't disappoint. He's already starting to offload that mountain of debt. Just as I expected, Song Qingchen is no silver spoon heir. He's just a bankrupt rich kid saddled with hundreds of millions in debt. In a past life, there was a scandal. Song Qingchen manipulated a poor, academically brilliant girl from his school. He sweet-talked her into becoming the legal representative of his company, transferring his astronomical debts onto her. This drove her to jump from a tall building on the eve of her college entrance exams. It takes a villain to deal with a villain. A bankrupt rich kid and the vain Lu Lingxue. What a perfect match, a top-tier pairing, a match made in heaven. The very next day, Lu Lingxue dressed to the nines and was personally escorted to school by her brother and sister-in-law to confess her feelings. To show off his daughter's achievement, her brother recorded a video of Lu Lingxue accepting Song Qingchen's confession and posted it on his social media, captioning it, "My good girl is so capable." In the video, Lu Lingxue, blushing with shyness, threw herself into Song Qingchen's arms and clung to him tightly. Under her loose school uniform, she wore only a thin camisole. As she pressed against Song Qingchen, the view inside was completely exposed. Song Qingchen pressed his tongue against the inside of his cheek, his gaze brimming with intense interest and mockery. It suddenly dawned on me that Song Qingchen wasn't just a bankrupt rich kid. He was a sadistic pervert with a penchant for torturing women. He particularly enjoyed tormenting girls like Lu Lingxue, whose figure he deemed deformed. But that had nothing to do with me anymore. I rubbed my temples, intending to close the video, when my eyes suddenly froze. In the top right corner of the video, I saw a frail girl standing on the edge of a high rooftop, buffeted by the wind. Her gaze was vacant and desperate as she stared down, looking as if she wanted to jump. My heart skipped a beat when I saw her face. It was Zhou Si, the top student who took her own life on the eve of the college entrance exam in my past life. But why, in this life, I deliberately used Lu Lingxue to keep Song Qingchen occupied, and Zhou Si has already been freed from her crushing debt, so why is Zhou Si still considering such a desperate move, and why has the timing of her suicide been moved up? I closed the video call and sprinted to the school like a madman. 7. I grabbed Zhou Si just as she was about to jump. Zhou Si stared at me in panic, her pale face covered in dark bruises. I frowned. Having treated Lu Lingxue for years, I had enough medical knowledge to know that Zhou Si's injuries weren't just on her face. There had to be more hidden beneath her clothes. Sure enough, when I pushed up Zhou Si's sleeve, I found her arm covered in a shocking lattice of whip marks and scars. My expression darkened instantly. "Did Song Qingchen do this to you?" I asked through gritted teeth. These deliberate, calculated wounds made it impossible not to recall Song Qingchen's known proclivity for abusing women. Zhou Si's silence was a tacit admission. I squeezed her hand and said earnestly, "He is the perpetrator. You shouldn't be standing here. Only the perpetrator should face death in despair and agony. The victim should open their arms and personally drag the perpetrator down to hell." Zhou Si was stunned for a moment. Then her eyes welled up, and tears instantly streamed down her entire face. Half an hour later, listening to Zhou Si's heart-wrenching sobs, I understood why she had been standing there early. I then learned that Zhou Si's family was desperately poor. Her father died early, and her mother, unable to bear the hardship, remarried a stepfather who was a gambler. He abused Zhou Si daily and refused to pay her tuition. Zhou Si had been tutoring to save up for her tuition until she met Song Qingchen. He was extremely generous, insisting on paying her for tutoring sessions. When she refused, he gave the money to her stepfather for safekeeping, who would immediately gamble it all away. After Zhou Si had given him a certain amount of money, Song Qingchen falsely accused her of stealing it. He used this to blackmail her into becoming his girlfriend, threatening to report her to the police and have her sent to jail if she refused. Once Zhou Si became his girlfriend, Song Qingchen subjected her to daily abuse to satisfy his perverse desires. If it had only been that, Lu Lingxue might have been able to endure it, but after Lu Lingxue appeared, her deformed physique caught Song Qingchen's attention, and he shifted his predatory focus onto her. Already drowning in debt, Song Qingchen had no money left to win over Lu Lingxue, so he pressured Zhou Si and her stepfather to repay him once more, driving the stepfather to consider selling Zhou Si to settle the debts. In utter despair, Zhou Si walked up to the rooftop. That bastard Song Qingchen, I clenched my fist, never imagining that my actions in this life nearly drove Zhou Si to take her own life sooner. I remember our homeroom teacher once remarked with regret that Zhou Si had the potential to aim for top universities like Tsinghua or Peking University. Given a second chance at life, I've changed my own fate. But I also hope to lend a hand to others. This world always needs someone to mend its broken pieces. In this lifetime, I want to be that person. I know Song Qingchen will get his comeuppance sooner or later in this life. In the last one, although he saddled Zhou Si with debt, he didn't last long before being thrown in prison himself. But right now, I want him to meet his end even sooner. I smiled at Zhou Si. I'll sponsor you from now on. I just got 500,000 from that bastard brother of mine, more than enough to support Zhou Si. As for the debt, it was forced on us by Song Qingchen in the first place. Once he's finished, the debt will disappear on its own. Zhou Si's eyes widened in surprise, but then her expression darkened again. She rolled up her sleeve once more, revealing a scar that looked bone deep. My stepfather and Song Qingchen both said these scars will never fade, that I'm a broken girl, that no man will ever want me, that I'll never amount to anything, just a worthless burden. I understood what Zhou Si meant. She was worried that after I supported her, she wouldn't be able to repay me. I was both deeply moved and heartbroken in that moment. I had never expected any repayment. Gently tracing her scars, I smiled softly and said, "A butterfly that emerges from an imperfect chrysalis shines all the more brilliantly. An indomitable spirit outshines any beautiful facade in this world." And then, I watched as her tone shifted. "You are the author of your own life story. Even if a man is not a chapter in it, that doesn't stop you from writing a fulfilling ending. No one decreed that a woman's worth is defined by a man's approval. Some women are never meant to be caged canaries. They will fight to soar higher, destined to become eagles that rule the skies." Zhou Si's eyes shone brilliantly, filled with a radiant light. 8. I began to devise a plan to make Song Qingchen face his comeuppance sooner rather than later. In my past life, Song Qingchen went to prison over a news story about intentionally manufacturing junk food, but I've forgotten exactly what kind of food it was. I wandered over to the vicinity of the Song Corporation, hoping to see if it would jog my memory. I never expected to run into Lu Lingxue's whole family here, along with Song Qingchen. My brother and sister-in-law were loaded down with shopping bags, their faces crinkling into beaming smiles. Song Qingchen had his arm around Lu Lingxue. When his gaze occasionally drifted toward his brother and sister-in-law, there was no trace of displeasure in his eyes, only a radiant smile. I couldn't help but wonder, given that Song Qingchen was already drowning in debt, how could he suddenly be so generous? Just as I was lost in thought, Lu Lingxue, with her sharp eyes, spotted me. Lu Lingxue lifted her chin with the pride of a peacock, looking at me with smug satisfaction. "Auntie, I'm now the legal representative of the Song Group. The company is mine from now on." Jealous, not to be outdone, my brother and sister-in-law quickly chimed in, bragging, "Our wonderful son-in-law even gave each of us a few small companies." No wonder Song Qingchen didn't mind these gifts. With a few big fools taking care of all the debts, what's a little pocket change? I smiled meaningfully and nodded repeatedly, like a chicken pecking at rice. "I'm so jealous, I could just die of envy." Lu Lingxue, basking in my flattery, smacked her lips with satisfaction. "I've already dropped out. None of the boys at school can compare to Brother Qingchen. He's so much richer and more considerate." Ever since she started dating Song Qingchen, Lu Lingxue decisively quit school to devote herself entirely to serving him. I glanced at Lu Lingxue. Given her current condition, it really wasn't suitable for her to remain on campus and disrupt the students' learning. After stopping the herbal medicine, Lu Lingxue's development accelerated at an alarming rate, with her size changing almost daily. After not seeing her for a while, Lu Lingxue's figure had become even more exaggerated and eye-catching. Her oversized clothes could barely contain her, and the sheer weight left her winded after just a few steps. Medically, this is a condition that, in its early stages, only affects a person's mobility, but in the later stages, the body simply can't keep up with that terrifying rate of development, and all sorts of health problems start to crop up. In my past life, my concern wasn't just that Lu Lingxue might be ridiculed. More than anything, I was worried about her physical well-being. But clearly, in this life, Lu Lingxue isn't the least bit worried about her health. Instead, she's turned her frail appearance into an advantage. Playfully demanding that Song Qingchen carry her like a princess, Song Qingchen licked his teeth, then scooped Lu Lingxue into his arms and hurried toward the house. Her brother and sister-in-law exchanged a glance and shared a knowing, suggestive chuckle. Before she left, Lu Lingxue flashed me a triumphant, winner's smile. I gave a slight smile, hoping that Lu Lingxue would truly become the winner in life. 9. After Lu Lingxue and her family departed, I investigated the area. Following some faint clues, I actually managed to uncover the reason Song Qingchen was imprisoned in my past life. Song Qingchen had been instructing the factory to use hazardous materials in food production. The most horrifying part is that this tainted food was distributed nationwide, ending up on countless dinner tables. Now I understand why Song Qingchen ended up in prison in my past life. His actions have indirectly caused the deaths of countless people. I lowered my gaze and thought. In my past life, these crimes were exposed by undercover media reports from inside the factory, but now, it's up to me to bring them to light. I infiltrated the Song Group's factory, secretly gathering evidence of their counterfeit and substandard food production. Just as the evidence was nearly gathered, Lu Lingxue somehow found out I had entered the factory and rushed over specifically to gloat. Auntie, you raised me for a few years after all. If you had just gotten on your knees and begged me, you wouldn't have sunk to this level. Lu Lingxue covered her mouth, laughing so hard her whole body shook, until she seemed to pull something and winced in pain, baring her teeth. That's when I noticed Lu Lingxue was dressed unusually heavily. This is quite different from her usual style of dress. In the past, Lu Lingxue would have worn as little as possible, and if the law allowed it, she'd have preferred to wear nothing at all. She took pride in her physical assets. Seeing no need for clothing to conceal them, I asked with feigned concern, "You don't look well. Are you feeling sick?" Lu Lingxue froze, her body giving an involuntary tremble. I smiled knowingly. Without Zhou Si around, Song Qingchen's perverse methods were naturally going to be directed at Lu Lingxue. Lu Lingxue shot me a venomous glare. Her gaze fell on my unusually plain clothes, then dropped to appraise her own $1 million crocodile skin handbag. Her expression shifted step by step, from fear to calm, and finally to one brimming with superiority. Lu Lingxue lifted her head and said smugly, "This is just a bit of fun between husband and wife. You wouldn't understand, Auntie, since you don't even have a man." I was dying of laughter inside. Fun between husband and wife. Indeed, Song Qingchen had never married Lu Lingxue. In his eyes, she was nothing more than a plaything to vent his twisted desires on, but soon enough, Song Qingchen had no time to spare for Lu Lingxue. After gathering sufficient evidence, I sent it all in one go to the major media outlets. That very afternoon, the media ran extensive reports on the Song Group's illegal activities. Song Qingchen and all others involved in the illegal acts were arrested by the police. Meanwhile, news of the Song Group's billions in debt spread like wildfire, and all creditors descended upon Lu Lingxue to demand repayment. Already reeling from the shock of Song Qingchen's crimes, Lu Lingxue was then hit with the sudden revelation that she was the company's legal representative and, along with her brother and sister-in-law, was liable for all of the Song Group's debts. The news caused her to faint on the spot. I was already at the airport, about to leave for further studies. When I got the news, Zhou Si came to see me off, her eyes red from crying. I patted her head and said with a smile, "Keep going. Heaven rewards those who work hard. The world is full of clever people, even more beautiful ones, and countless wealthy ones. It seems there's no place for those who are poor but hardworking, yet the world is ultimately fair. No matter what cards you hold, you must still ante up, in the end. The game comes down to who can resist temptation and stubbornly stay in their seat. In the game of life, before the final whistle blows, everyone is a potential winner. Stones from other hills can polish your own jade." On the giant screen, the news showed Lu Lingxue being taken away by an ambulance, her brother and sister-in-law beside her, breaking down and cursing hysterically. What's the use of having a great figure if you just end up getting scammed? I looked at Lu Lingxue again, knowing full well that soon, she wouldn't even have that great figure anymore. For now, Lu Lingshua's body still possessed a certain beauty, enough to attract men's glances and stir women's envy. Development doesn't halt for beauty, nor does it cease with age. It will continue to develop, transforming from a perfect figure into Lu Lingshua's nightmare. The pride Lu Lingxue takes now in her exaggerated development, which other girls lack, will be the source of her future suffering. Lu Lingxue fails to understand that abnormal development is a medical condition, not a trophy to flaunt. I stepped through the ticket gate and left without looking back. Once I freed up the time I spent caring for Lu Lingxue, I realized life is a vast wilderness, full of infinite possibilities. In my past life, I poured almost all my heart and soul into Lu Lingxue, losing all sense of personal space. The prime of life does not come twice, just as one morning does not bring two dawns. I am fortunate to have a second chance, and I am determined to make different choices than I did in my past life. This time around, I have chosen to pursue my dream of dance. I did not aim to become just any dancer, but committed myself to becoming a truly accomplished one. I began by honing my technique, then sought out masters to learn from, and finally immersed myself in studying every classic piece. I have walked each step of this path with deliberate care and patience. I never imagined it would take me 6 years to go from complete obscurity to being a household name. What I imagined even less was that, 6 years later, I would see Lu Lingxue again, and the Lu Lingxue standing before me now was almost unrecognizable. 10. I ran into Lu Lingxue and her family at the casting call for non-professional actors. Her brother and sister-in-law stared wide-eyed. While Lu Lingxue glared at me on reflex, her sister-in-law grabbed my arm and pleaded urgently, "Xingwei, please help Lingxue regulate her body and restore it to how it was." Her brother spat in disgust and grumbled, "Hurry up and fix her, she's developed way too much, no man would ever want her." I glanced silently at Lu Lingxue, stunned by the couple's sheer audacity, yet also so shocked by her appearance that I couldn't look away. 6 years of development had turned Lu Lingxue into a complete and utter monstrosity of malformation, without the tight bindings to restrain them. Her enlarged parts would sag down to her belly, threatening to crush her waist. 6 years ago, Lu Lingxue still possessed a certain beauty, but now, she only appeared bizarre, grotesque, and utterly unacceptable. No wonder her brother and sister-in-law were so desperate to see Lu Lingxue return to normal. Lu Lingxue seemed on the verge of refusing, but her brother shot her a fierce glare. She finally gave in, casting a reluctant glance my way and conceding, "Fine, go ahead and restore me." I gave a faint, silent tug at the corner of my mouth and replied coolly, "I told you I wouldn't treat you anymore, not even a little. Besides, even if I were willing to treat her, Lu Lingxue has long passed the optimal window for recovery. She can never be restored." My brother raised his hand in a fury to strike me, but my bodyguard's icy glare stopped him cold. He was left awkwardly holding his hand in the air. My sister-in-law threw herself to the ground, wailing and thrashing about. "If she can't recover, Lu Lingxue will never find a decent man to marry. How on earth are we supposed to pay back all that money?" Over the years, in the letters Zhou Si sent, I had heard about the situation my brother, sister-in-law, and Lu Lingxue were in. After Song Qingchen was sent to prison, my brother, sister-in-law, and Lu Lingxue were all saddled with crippling debt. My brother and his wife could not possibly leave until they had paid off all these debts. At first, my brother and his wife still tried to persuade Lu Lingxue to find another rich second-generation heir to marry into a wealthy family. If she married into a rich family, paying off any amount of debt would be a piece of cake, but they never expected that. Although many men were interested in Lu Lingxue, not a single one was willing to marry her properly. Everyone saw Lu Lingxue's abnormal development and treated her as a disposable plaything, utterly unwilling to marry her. As Lu Lingxue's condition grew increasingly abnormal over time, not a single man was willing to date her anymore, fearing they'd be seen as perverts. Hearing that I was unwilling to treat her, Lu Lingxue stared wide-eyed in shock and said in disbelief, "Auntie, I've already agreed to let you treat me. What are you being so difficult about?" I rubbed my temples. What foolish nonsense was Lu Lingxue saying? Why would I be difficult? I simply didn't want to treat her anymore. Lu Lingxue bit her lower lip, her delicate face instantly flushing with anger. Lu Lingxue let out a heavy, disdainful snort, tilting her chin up with a strangely smug expression. "I'm only letting you treat me as a favor. If you don't do it this time, you'll never get another chance." She leaned close to my ear and whispered, "I don't even want the treatment. I might as well tell you, I'm going to be the next breakout star from the public." So that's why Lu Lingxue rushed to the set, to become that breakout star from the public. My memory flickered for a moment. In my past life, Lu Lingxue was also dead set on becoming a celebrity and came to the set to participate in this amateur star search competition. However, she was eliminated in the very first round. The staff only gave a vague reason, saying her figure didn't meet their standards. Once again, Lu Lingxue directed all her resentment squarely at me. She believed it was all my fault, because I helped her regain her health. She lost her ideal figure and failed to be selected as the amateur star. It was this incident that planted the idea of killing me in her mind. Lu Lingxue was still impatiently reassuring her brother and sister-in-law. Mom, Dad, don't worry. I'm absolutely going to be the one chosen for this ordinary person to star show. Once I'm a celebrity, these debts won't even be a problem. Watching her smug, self-assured expression, I allowed a faint smile to touch my lips. Surely Lu Lingxue didn't actually believe that the only reason she failed to become a star from obscurity in her past life was because of her figure. In this lifetime, she will finally learn the real reason. Lu Xingwei. The set was buzzing with activity as the amateur star search competition was about to begin. Staff on site were calling for contestants to enter and get ready. Lu Lingxue and I walked towards the building at the same time. Lu Lingxue glanced at me sideways and suddenly asked with disdain, "Auntie, don't tell me you've also entered this amateur talent competition." I gave a non-committal nod. In a way, I suppose I had. Lu Lingxue let out a sharp, mocking laugh. She covered her mouth, her eyes sweeping over me from head to toe, her tone dripping with contempt. "Auntie, with that scrawny body of yours, what man wouldn't lose his appetite at the sight? And you still dream of being a star and acting?" Lu Lingxue and I are polar opposites when it comes to our figures. She's overly developed, while I look downright underdeveloped. If it weren't for my long hair and striking face, everyone would surely mistake me for a tomboy. My advice to you is to stop daydreaming, an ordinary person becoming a star. Give me a break, Professor Lu Xingwei. Lu Lingxue's words were abruptly cut off by a voice brimming with delight. The host, who was also the producer, Zhang Fan, walked over. He looked at me excitedly and said with great enthusiasm, "Professor Lu Xingwei, you're finally here. It's such an honor to have your guidance as a judge for this competition." Lu Lingxue stood there frozen, her mouth agape in a rather peculiar posture. The host glanced at Lu Lingxue, then looked at me cautiously. "She seems to be a contestant, Teacher Lu Xingwei. Do you know her?" From the host's demeanor, it seemed that if I said I knew her, she would receive special treatment and preferential consideration. Lu Lingxue's eyes lit up with hope, but I simply shook my head with indifference. "I don't know her. I have no need to be acquainted with a monster who burned her own aunt to death." Lu Lingxue's body went rigid, her eyes filling with resentment once more. The selection competition began shortly after, the venue packed to the rafters. The reason this was called a search for amateur stars was that those selected would immediately land supporting roles in a major film by a famous director. All the judges on the selection panel were also cast members of the production. When Lu Lingxue learned that I had been personally chosen by the director to play the female lead due to my exceptional dance skills, she was absolutely seething with envy, just like in her previous life. Lu Lingxue was eliminated outright in the first round of the appearance screening. Lu Lingxue stood there dumbfounded, completely unable to understand why she had been eliminated. She shouted angrily, "Are you blind? My figure is so good, so many people like it. On what grounds are you eliminating me?" But no one paid her any mind. Only a screening worker gave an impatient explanation. "Your figure is far too abnormal. It's completely unacceptable. Only perverts would like that. And even putting your figure aside, your face doesn't meet the screening criteria either." In her previous life, Lu Lingxue wasn't eliminated because of her figure at all, but because her face was simply too ordinary. Lu Lingxue was trembling with rage. She suddenly pointed at me and said, "I'm her niece. You can't eliminate me." I frowned, thinking Lu Lingxue had lost her mind. "Forget that I don't like her. Even if we were close, I would never show favoritism just because of family ties." I signaled to the staff to ignore Lu Lingxue's nonsense. The staff immediately understood and began shouting to drive Lu Lingxue out. Lu Lingxue was absolutely furious. Suddenly, Lu Lingxue glared at me and said in a sinister tone, "Auntie, do you really think I'm out of options?" Lu Lingxue gave me a meaningful smile. That night, Lu Lingxue entered the hotel room of the competition's associate director. 12. The next day, Lu Lingxue appeared at the second round looking deathly pale. when she saw me. She instantly lifted her chin with a smug air. I watched her pallid, almost purplish complexion thoughtfully. This associate director, much like Song Ching-chen, was notorious for his predilection for abusing women with deformities, particularly in bed. Lu Lingxue had begged him all last night. No wonder she looked so terrible today. The second round was the dance performance. I sat on the judges' panel, meticulously scoring each contestant. I knew that as a judge, a single stroke of my pen could alter someone's life, so I was exceptionally cautious. Fortunately, all the girls possessed excellent dance skills, whether it was classical or contemporary dance. Their performances were a delight to watch, and all the judges, myself included, nodded in approval. When Lu Lingxue appeared, everyone on the scene instinctively frowned and drew a sharp breath. Lu Lingxue was wearing far too little. To put it nicely, her outfit was refreshingly light. To put it bluntly, it was the kind of attire that would get you busted in a vice raid. The problem was, Lu Lingxue seemed completely unaware, even looking rather pleased with herself as she took in the stunned expressions of the crowd. Judges, esteemed audience, my name is Lu Lingxue. I've choreographed my own dance, and I'm sure you'll all love it. Lu Lingxue began her dance. Quite a few people in the audience covered their eyes. They couldn't bear to watch. It was simply too risque. I frowned and signaled the staff to remind the audience not to record. If this gets out, it's no different from a cheap, amateur video. The dance concluded. When it came time to score, the judges exchanged uncertain glances, but I didn't hesitate to be the first to press the elimination button. Lu Lingxue's face instantly contorted with rage. How dare you? She shrieked indignantly. I danced so well. I had everyone captivated. In reality, everyone was just stunned into silence. Lu Lingxue let out a scornful, icy laugh. You may not like it, but the other judges will. At that moment, the other judges proceeded to press their elimination buttons, one after another. I straightened up slightly and said in a low, serious voice, "This is a selection for dance talent. What we require is technical skill. No matter how likable you are, it's irrelevant." Lu Lingxue's performance just now showed no technical skill whatsoever. It was purely a display of seduction. I announced calmly, "Lu Lingxue, you have been unanimously voted out." Lu Lingxue had pulled every string to get this chance. When she heard my verdict, she looked at me as if I were her mortal enemy. She suddenly threw a fit, accusing me of using my position to settle a personal grudge. Don't think I don't know. You're just jealous of my figure because you don't have one. All that talk about dance is just an excuse. Auntie, dare you say you're better than me? You probably got to be a judge by cozying up to some man, too. I really can't imagine who would ever want you. Lu Lingxue glared at me furiously, her tone dripping with sarcasm. My mouth fell open, and my expression suddenly turned grim. It finally dawned on me that what was more twisted than Lu Lingxue's body was her mind. In her worldview, a woman had no means of survival other than depending on a man, so she would rather endure the torment of her overdeveloped body than seek treatment and recovery. Her deformed physique was her only asset. Therefore, she believed that only a voluptuous body could dance with captivating grace. I'm tall and slender, with not an ounce of extra flesh, so I could never dance well. The moment I understood, I was both exasperated and amused by Lu Lingxue's bizarre train of thought. But I will make her understand that nothing could be further from the truth. Even without a voluptuous figure, I can dance the most moving melody. I stepped past the judges' table and walked to the center of the stage. The spotlight fell upon me. I gazed out at the sea of faces in the audience, my expression calm and composed. Thousands of days and nights of practice have given me the confidence to face anyone's doubt. I can withstand any test. I have executed every single movement countless times, each one honed by countless drops of sweat. My lean frame seems to contain a vast reservoir of energy, which erupts outward the moment I begin to move, sending waves through the air. The entire hall fell into a profound silence, so quiet you could hear a pin drop. It was only after a long moment, when I had finally caught my breath, that thunderous applause erupted throughout the hall. I turned to look at Lu Lingxue, whose face was a picture of utter dismay, and said coolly, "Now that is dancing." 13. In the end, Lu Lingxue was eliminated from the selection trials. That evening, she went live online, streaming in tears. Lu Xingwei discriminated against me for my developmental deformity, so she didn't let me pass the audition. All the hard work I put into practicing that dance for so long was completely dismissed by her as worthless, just because of my physical deformity. Without hesitation, She threw mud at me, viciously saying, she discriminates against people who aren't normal. Claiming those with deformed bodies don't even deserve to live, Lu Lingxue deliberately twisted the facts, blaming her elimination from the selection entirely on my alleged discrimination against people with physical deformities. The entire internet exploded. Living with a physical deformity is painful enough. Why use it to target a streamer? That's just too much. Lu Xingwei is pure evil. This is a blatant crime. She deserves the death penalty. Ha. All that hard work gets completely dismissed just because of a physical deformity. Some of these high and mighty judges really need to come down from their pedestals. Thanks to Lu Lingxue's deliberate media manipulation, in less than a day, I became public enemy number one. The competition staff informed me that the investors are demanding a change of judges, or they'll pull their funding. I let out a cold, mocking laugh. This life's Lu Lingxue was no different from the last ones. Both were hell-bent on taking my life. But this time, I won't show any mercy. I'm going to teach her a lesson she'll never recover from. However, I never expected that before I could even make a move, the situation online would take a dramatic turn. Someone leaked the complete surveillance footage from the audition. Along with a series of Lu Lingxue's life schemes over the years, she never put in the hard work to practice dance. She dropped out of school hoping to marry into wealth, only to end up with hundreds of millions in debt. After racking up that debt, Lu Lingxue showed no remorse. Instead, she used her deformed physique to repeatedly seduce various wealthy heirs. All the evidence proves she wasn't tormented by her deformity. On the contrary, she reveled in it, even refusing the restorative treatment I offered her. In the blink of an eye, the target of public condemnation shifted to Lu Lingxue. What a joke. The thief is crying, "Stop, thief. How shameless can you be? Lu Xingwei is such a good aunt, spending all that time treating Lu Lingxue. What a shame Lu Lingxue turned out to be so ungrateful. A deformed body is a medical condition. How on earth does Lu Lingxue see it as some kind of asset and even flaunt it? Unbelievable." Lu Lingxue's live stream was so bombarded with hateful comments that it started lagging, and she was scared straight off the internet. I looked at the netizen who had provided evidence for me in advance. Her name was Zhou Si. I smiled with relief. Zhou Si had successfully taken the college entrance exam this time, becoming the top scorer in our province and securing direct admission to Tsinghua University. After graduation, Zhou Si didn't pursue further studies. Instead, she rounded up a few people and started a business. During her toughest times, I transferred most of my own money to her, hoping to help her pull through. Now that she has the spare energy to help me deal with Lu Lingxue, it seems her career is finally getting on track. Just as I was thinking about it, my assistant suddenly called me, sounding absolutely ecstatic. He said the investor pulled out. I was puzzled why that was any cause for celebration, but then my assistant said a new investor had come on board, and they specifically granted me the highest authority over the talent competition. That investor's name is Zhou Si. That evening, I was on my way to meet Zhou Si when I spotted Lu Lingxue on the road. She looked utterly haggard, covered in wounds, and seemed a bit unhinged. I knew that ever since she was eliminated from the selection trials, Lu Lingxue had completely lost any chance of repaying her debts. Her brother and sister-in-law, unable to bear the pressure, had taken their own lives with poison. Only Lu Lingxue remained. Driven to the brink of collapse by her creditors, Ling Feishue's eyes were bloodshot. She stared at me with a neurotic intensity, muttering, "You're the one who ruined my entire life." I frowned, staring back at her and pondering the meaning of her words, when she suddenly pulled a fruit knife from her pocket and lunged at me like a madwoman. She blurted out, "Why didn't you keep pushing me to get treatment? If I didn't have this deformed body, I wouldn't have ended up like this. I'm even worse off than in my last life." She moved too fast. Before I could react, someone had already stepped in front of me. It was Zhou Si. Zhou Si's expression was pained, yet his eyes held a glimmer of joy. "Sis, I can finally repay you." The fruit knife had been plunged into Zhou Si's heart, and blood was gushing out uncontrollably. Realizing he had killed the wrong person, Zhou Si fled in terror. I had no mind to deal with her. I just called 120, as tears streamed down my face without end. "Silly girl, I don't need her gratitude. I just need her to be safe and sound." I reached out to cover Zhou Si's wound, but something felt off. It seemed a bit too flat, and there was no undergarment of any kind beneath. An impossible thought rose in my heart, and I looked at Zhou Si in shock. Zhou Si let out a weak laugh, her gaze drifting toward the sky. sis, back then, when 33 told my stepfather that no man would ever want me, it wasn't because of the scars covering my body, it was because I'm a freak, neither fully male nor female, I don't have the organs of a woman, nor those of a man. Everyone looked down on me as a monster and tormented me for it. You were the only one who ever told me that when a malformed chrysalis breaks free from its cocoon, the butterfly that emerges is even more radiant and beautiful. Sis, you helped me break out of my cocoon, you gave me a rebirth, but I'm so tired from running too, I can finally rest. Josie's eyelids slowly closed, and a smile of relief touched the corners of his lips. I slumped to the ground in despair. My face felt cold and wet. When I touched it, my fingers came away damp. Finally, I could hold back no longer and broke down into uncontrollable sobs. Lu Lingxue was finally captured and sentenced to life imprisonment, but due to her excessive physical development, she wouldn't last 2 years in prison. Her only wish was to see me. On the day of the prison visit, Lu Lingxue's voice trembled. Auntie, you've been reborn too, haven't you? I gave a cold, curt nod. Lu Lingxue burst into tears, her eyes filled with guilt and remorse. Before leaving, she asked me, Auntie, in our past life, why were you so determined to treat me? I paused for a moment. Because I'm also malformed. You developed too much, I developed too little. I understand the agony of your past life. I sarcastically emphasized the words, past life, then left without a second thought. Malformed development is a hereditary disease among the women in my family, so I truly empathize with Lu Lingxue's anguish. I have no intention of getting married, so I want to save her, and then spend my life with her, finding warmth in each other's company. Later, I left her behind and found another person to lean on and spend my life with, but that person turned into a butterfly and flew away. I closed the iron window. Lu Lingxue wept bitterly behind the iron bars. I walked out of the police station, my gaze fixed straight ahead. In this world, there are still countless deformed butterflies, struggling to spread their wings and crying out for help. My steps cannot falter. I must press on forever, to save each and every little butterfly. Story 2. My boyfriend and I were reborn together. During the May Day holiday, my boyfriend Griffin and I took the high-speed train back to our hometown to get engaged. Just as the high-speed train was about to depart, he suddenly abandoned me, got out of the car and went to find his white moonlight thorn, because he knew, 5 days later this world would become a hellish apocalypse. He also knew he would become the leader of a survivor base. In his past life, his white moonlight endured countless hardships in the apocalypse before finally reaching our base, only to meet him once before her flame was extinguished. This remained his only regret, so I didn't stop him. Watching his retreating figure, I sneered, without my space and supplies, let's see how long you can last. May Day holiday, I took the high-speed train back to my hometown with my boyfriend Griffin to get engaged. Our hometowns are in the same province but different cities. With only about 100 kilometers between them, this year's May Day holiday has 5 days off, so we planned to go back to our respective homes first. Then the next day, Griffin came to South City with his mother to visit my parents, then took us back to his hometown to hold the engagement banquet. But when the high-speed train was about to depart, Griffin suddenly froze for a moment and insisted on getting off. I knew it. He had been reborn too. He abandoned me to go find his ex-girlfriend Thorn. I didn't stop Griffin, watching coldly as he ignored the flight attendant's warnings and insisted on jumping off the slowly moving train car. Perhaps it was my unignorable, hate-filled gaze. He turned back and spoke to me through the window, even with the tone of a superior giving orders. Echo, the engagement will proceed as planned. I'll be back soon, so wait for me at home peacefully. You scumbag. You and Thorn deserve each other for life. We're breaking up. Never see you again. I opened WeChat. Sent him this message, then blocked and deleted him in one go. In the previous life, Griffin's ex-girlfriend Thorn arrived at the base already on her last legs. 1. Having not eaten for many days, she was severely dehydrated, and her organs had already begun to fail. The base simply doesn't have any life-saving equipment, and medicines are too precious in the post-apocalyptic world. I don't think we should waste too much on her, so Thorn didn't survive past the second day. Griffin blamed me for not using all our medicines to save her. We had a big fight and parted on bad terms. Later, others at the base mediated, giving him a way to save face as he apologized and made amends, so we reconciled as before, but I never imagined he still held a grudge. 1 month later, the base discovered an abandoned small food processing plant. While our team was searching for supplies in the abandoned factory under scorching heat, he deliberately caused injuries to both my legs. Instead of taking me back to the base, he left me in the abandoned factory with the words, "Thorn has suffered enough outside the base, you better reflect on your actions, I'll come pick you up in 3 days." I never got to see Griffin return for me, though I had space, brought enough medicine and food. My 2 fists were no match for a dozen starving wild dogs. That night I died under the fangs of a pack of vicious wild dogs. Coming to my senses, it felt as if the pain of the wild dog's bite still lingered on my body. I closed my eyes, suppressing the endless hatred in my heart. The top priority now is to return to my parents' side and stock up on supplies to survive the apocalypse. The high-speed train roared forward, leaving Griffin's hypocritical facade behind. I returned to Nan's City as originally planned. After getting off the high-speed train, I took a taxi back to my home in the old city district's alley from memory. Warm light shone through the second-floor window. As the door opened, Mom and Dad were happily preparing things for my engagement with Griffin. Echoes back, "Why didn't you let Dad pick you up?" My nose stung with emotion, and I couldn't help but hug my parents and cry for a long time. In the apocalypse of my past life, I initially video called my parents daily until communications were cut off. And I never saw them again. "What's wrong? Did Griffin bully you?" Dad frowned and was about to call Griffin to demand an explanation. Mom's eyes also turned red as she hugged me. "Echo, if you've been wronged, tell us, don't be afraid." I choked up and told them about breaking up with Griffin. Just as I was hesitating whether to tell my parents that the apocalypse was coming, Griffin's mom called. My parents were about to confront Griffin for answers and quickly picked up the phone. "Hello? Where is that Griffin boy? Our family isn't defenseless. How dare he treat my daughter like this?" Griffin's mom's tearful voice came through. "Echo, do you know where Griffin went? He didn't come home on time today and called me to stock up on as much food as possible, saying the apocalypse is coming. He went to find Thorn. Don't come to me about his matters anymore. We've already broken up." I cut her off, hung up the phone, and blocked the number. What nonsense about the apocalypse. That heartless bastard is just making excuses. My dad kept grumbling and cursing Griffin. "Mom, Dad, sit down and listen to me." I solemnly told my parents, "Both Griffin and I have been reborn. In the previous life, during the May Day holiday, temperatures abnormally soared to 45 degrees, sparking some doomsday rumors online. Initially, experts confidently debunked these rumors online, claiming it was just global warming and that the abnormal temperatures would gradually return to normal in a few days. However, the temperatures not only failed to drop but instead rose daily, eventually reaching 60 degrees. Nights brought slight relief with a few degrees lower, but the humidity made it even more unbearable. The extreme heat made normal work and life impossible, prompting the government to advise people to stay indoors and await rescue. During the day, the scorching sun kept everyone indoors, but at night, lawless individuals and opportunists took to the streets for looting, escalating later to arson, murder, and robbery, ultimately leading to a complete collapse of social order. I demonstrated my portable space ability to my parents by storing a bowl of fruit from the table into the space and then taking it out again. My parents finally believed that the apocalypse wasn't Griffin's nonsense, nor was it a delusion I had after suffering a shock. We focused on discussing where would be safest to live, and in the end, my parents unanimously agreed to return to our old house in the countryside. The old house in our hometown has a basement. There aren't many people living in the countryside now, and during the day we can hide in the basement, coming up to move around at night. Yes, let's raise the walls first. I'll hire the renovation team tomorrow. 2 days should be enough. All right, Dad. You contact the renovation team tomorrow to fix up the old house. Mom and I will go buy supplies. How much savings do we have available? We have over 200,000 in working capital. There's 600,000 in fixed deposit. That's your dowry. Mom sighed wistfully. Let's use the 200,000 for renovating the countryside house. Hire as many workers as possible. It must be completed within 2 days. We'll withdraw the 600,000 fixed deposit tomorrow to buy supplies. Finally storing the goods from the small supermarket into the space, I touched the bracelet. Tomorrow we need to stock up on as many other daily necessities as possible. I made a list of supplies and showed it to my parents to see what else needs to be added. 200 barrels of drinking water, 100 bags of rice 50 kg, 100 portions each of dehydrated vegetables, frozen meat, instant noodles, pasta, and rice noodles. Stock up on compressed biscuits, snacks, various canned meats, self-heating hot pots, and spicy sauces like Lao Gan Ma for meals, multivitamins, anti-inflammatory drugs, fever reducers, alcohol, iodine solution, etc. 2 small household generators. Power and water outages will occur later, so generators and water filtration devices are essential. 3 ice makers, 10 solar charging panels, 3 tablets and 10 drones, 20 high-capacity power banks for emergencies, 50 sets of spare underwear, socks, and summer clothes per person, in the late stages of the apocalypse. There's no water to wash clothes, so you'll have to discard them after wearing them dirty. I'll contact a friend to prepare some self-defense items. When the apocalypse truly comes, all sorts of monsters will emerge. It's essential to guard against others, Dad said with a serious expression, picking up the phone to call his friend. Cyrus is right, the 3 of us should split up and take action tomorrow. Let's call it a day for now. You should get some sleep and rest properly. Mom stroked my hair. Before bed, after some consideration, I still chose to anonymously post many threads across various social media platforms online. Solar nuclear fusion activity is abnormal, potentially triggering a super flare, with its volume expanding by 5%. After May Day, global temperatures will suddenly soar to 60 degrees Celsius. Everyone should avoid traveling outdoors if possible. Those with means should stock up on supplies at home. Stock up on supplies immediately. Some online trolls started attacking, just seeking attention. Experts have already debunked claims about global warming. It's just a few days of high temperatures. This year's heat is truly abnormal. Previous May Day holidays weren't this hot. It's nearly 45 degrees Celsius where I am. But some cautious individuals also replied, many elderly people in our neighborhood have already suffered heatstroke. Everyone should really take this seriously. Exactly, those who can should stock up on more supplies, including medicines. Too, more and more netizens are joining the discussion, and the smart ones have already started purchasing supplies offline. As for those who don't believe it, I can't control that much. Life and death are fated. Still, I asked my dad to notify everyone in the neighborhood group chat. Global heatwave is coming. Stock up on supplies at home. Since we live in an old residential area where most residents are middle-aged or elderly, some might actually heed the advice to stock up and survive until the government's final rescue arrives. Early the next morning, Dad said he rented 2 large trucks overnight, one for himself to drive to the building materials wholesale market to buy steel bars and cement, then take workers to renovate our old house in the countryside. One car was driven by my mom to the grain and oil wholesale store to place orders, directly transported to the small supermarket's warehouse. And then I would store it in my space at night. My space is 500 square meters in size, and if arranged neatly, it can hold a lot of supplies. So, I went to several large supermarkets again to stock up on canned goods and various medications. For larger items like solar panels, generators, and water filters, I still opted for online shopping, paying extra to expedite the delivery. As for the goods in my parents' small supermarket, we'll store them in the space on the last day before leaving. Yes, I plan to put all the shelves from the supermarket downstairs into the space, which will make organization easier. The 3 of us worked for 2 days and finally prepared everything we could think of. My space is almost full of supplies, with only a few shelves from the supermarket downstairs left. Dad kept wiping sweat while sitting on the sofa. The living room air conditioner was already set to 20 degrees. But it couldn't stop the heat waves coming from outside. It's getting hotter and hotter. It must be almost 50 degrees now. My mom was sucking on an ice pop to cool down. The news reported 48 degrees. These days the Meteorological Bureau seems to have launched some rain-inducing rockets, but only a handful of areas nationwide actually got rain. We're leaving tomorrow. The wall outside our old home's courtyard has been raised by 2 meters, and we'll seal the main gate with cement after we arrive. As we ate fruit and ice pops while discussing. Bang bang bang, someone is knocking at the door. I peek through the peephole. Griffin actually came knocking with his mother. In-laws, Echo, are you home? Echo, open the door quickly, let us in, it's too hot outside. Griffin's voice came through the security door in an arrogant tone. How dare he still show his face here? My dad couldn't hold back his anger, quickly opened the door and threw a basin of water outside, shouting at Griffin, get lost. In-laws, what's going on here? Let's talk things over properly. His mother looked displeased, wiping water off her face as she glared at us. Echo, I told you the engagement is still on as planned. I'll be back soon so you can wait for me at ease. You're becoming more and more unreasonable these days. The scumbag wiped his face, wearing an expression that said, I've already come to appease you and given you a way out, so stop being petty. Echo, let them in first so we can clarify things. Noticing the neighbors peeking from upstairs, my mother tugged at my sleeve. My mother wanted to make things clear. Since they didn't know about my tragic death in my past life, I moved aside to let Griffin and his mother in, but what I didn't expect was that he actually brought Thorn along too. Thorn was wearing a white dress, her oval face pale, her eyes reddening as she looked at me with pitiful eyes. Echo, I'm sorry. It was because of me that Griffin left you on the high-speed train. Please don't be angry with him. It's all my fault. My health failed me, and I fell ill and needed someone to take care of me. My father pointed at Thorn in disbelief and asked Griffin, Who is she? Griffin turned his face away, still somewhat guilty under my father's questioning. This is Thorn, she's my friend, she'll be living with us from now on. The shameless tone carried an attitude of wanting to enjoy the blessings of two women. My father's chest heaved with anger as he pointed at Griffin's nose. You beast, get out of my house. Mom immediately grabbed a broom to chase people away. Griffin raised his head, still speaking in a condescending tone. Echo, you should properly persuade your uncle and aunt. Do you know the apocalypse is coming soon? Do you understand the cruelty of this world? Without power or protection, even if you have abundant supplies at home, can you few elderly and weak ones keep them safe? I've already established my own faction. When the apocalypse arrives, I'll set up a survivor base. Out of past affection, I'll give you one more night to consider. We'll depart for Heisher first thing tomorrow morning. However, if your parents want my protection, that'll be a different price. After saying this, he stared meaningfully at the bracelet on my left hand and smiled ambiguously. Slap. I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. You dare hit me. Griffin pressed his tongue against his left cheek, his sinister gaze making me feel uneasy. My mother was also furious, grabbing a broom, but before she could strike the scumbag, my father had a gun pointed at his forehead. I widened my eyes in disbelief as he assembled a team and acquired firearms in just 2 or 3 days, but I couldn't risk my father's life on a gamble either. I was going to let you share in the coming glory, but since you're so disobedient, just stay here and wait for death. Griffin's face twisted with fury. 3. Griffin, put the gun down. We live in a society governed by law. I couldn't afford to provoke him now, only to stabilize the situation. In a society governed by law, but not for long, turning to Thorn and saying, Thorn, take off her bracelet. This is a keepsake left by my grandmother. Griffin, you've gone too far. I covered the bracelet, my heart pounding nervously. That scumbag Griffin finally revealed his wicked intentions. He wants my bracelet. Could it be? He thought my dimensional space came from the bracelet. Thorn, who had just been acting delicate and frail, forcibly yanked the bracelet off my wrist with brute strength. Griffin, this bracelet is so beautiful. Can you give it to me? Thorn gazed at the bracelet with reluctant longing, looking at Griffin with worshipful admiration. I'm still useful. I'll give you something better next time. His eyes gleamed as he greedily took the bracelet, examining it several times before carefully tucking it into his inner pocket. The bracelet was an old keepsake from my grandmother, and I had a habit of absent-mindedly touching it. Could it be that my habit of touching the bracelet whenever retrieving supplies from my spatial storage in my past life gave him the wrong impression? As the thought crossed my mind, I pretended to be angry but afraid to speak up. You've got what you wanted. Can you leave now? Echo, you really won't come with me. After all, we're about to get married, and I still love you. My eyes burned with rage, wishing I could tear chunks of flesh from him. Love me. If you loved me, you wouldn't bring your ex-girlfriend here to humiliate me. Is this what you call love? How disgusting. Griffin, it's all my fault that Echo is angry with you. Maybe I should just leave. Seeing you keep apologizing to Echo breaks my heart, Thorn said with manipulative sweetness. I keep my promises. I'll wait for you until tomorrow morning. He holstered his gun and walked away with his arm around Thorn's slender waist. Thorn snuggled against Griffin's chest, shooting me a secret glare before leaving. Humph, let you two lovebirds gloat for a few more days. I'd love to see Griffin's impotent rage when he discovers the bracelet has no spatial storage, in this lifetime, without my spatial storage and supplies. But at least you found love. It must be incredibly blissful, Griffin. I'm looking forward to it. Standing by the second floor window, I saw Griffin and Thorn get into an off-road vehicle and drive away. This is no longer the lawless world of the apocalypse. Today, that despicable couple dared to come to my home. No matter what, I must give them a grand gift. After photographing the license plate with my phone, I immediately dialed the emergency number. Someone is illegally carrying a firearm and has fled by car. The license plate is Nanching 6217. Meanwhile, my parents also noticed something was amiss. I proactively told my parents everything about my past life's ordeal, how Griffin lured me out of the base and killed me. I didn't mention being bitten to death by wild dogs. Afraid Dad would immediately go after Griffin in a rage. Echo, we must leave tonight. This Griffin is now full of sinister energy and armed. We're no match for him. If we can't confront him, we can at least avoid him. While he's still basking in the joy of getting the bracelet, let's make our escape quickly. I hurried downstairs and stashed all the items from the small supermarket into my personal space. In the dead of night, when all was silent, we slipped away into the darkness with my parents. Half an hour later, our whole family was on the highway out of town. Driving a large truck, I just breathed a sigh of relief in my heart. Buzz, a message was received on WeChat. Someone is following you. Remember to shake off the tail. Who are you? Why are you helping me? The other party did not respond. I looked back and indeed there was a car trailing far behind. Dad, someone is following us. Dad's face was grim as he stared at the rearview mirror, slammed the accelerator, then suddenly turned left at a fork before cutting the engine. Boom. A semi-truck lurking in the darkness loomed like a ghost across the road. The pursuing vehicle couldn't swerve in time and crashed straight into it. The right front of the truck's cab was dented inward, showing just how fast the SUV had been going. Seeing the overturned SUV by the roadside with the unconscious driver, we quickly left. What a pity, this truck is totaled. Dad still couldn't bear to part with it. Cyrus, stop nagging. It's scorching hot. Hurry up and open the truck's rear compartment. We need to switch vehicles and leave quickly. Dad was really foresight to load our family car onto the truck. I gave a thumbs up and showered him with praise. Dad made a last-minute detour to the western suburbs, taking a big loop around West Pan Mountain to make sure no one was following before heading back to our hometown. If Griffin finds out the bracelet doesn't have any spatial properties, he might come back. We need to hurry back to our hometown. By now, he's probably already being interrogated at the police station. I sneered inwardly. At 5 a.m., we arrived at our hometown. Both parents think the old house in the village is quite safe here. Nowadays, most young adults in the village have gone out to work, leaving behind mainly the elderly and children, with about a dozen households remaining in the whole village. Our old house is at the very back of the village, next to a lush little hill. But now the plants on the hill have been scorched yellow and curled up by the sun, and they won't last much longer. Another reason I insisted on returning to my hometown is that there's a large reservoir near the village. Because the village is next to the reservoir, every household has a water filter installed, and they use water from the reservoir for daily needs. The village is truly blessed by nature. If there's enough food, they could really pull through, although it was early morning. The distant scenery appeared distorted and blurry under the sunlight, clearly indicating that the temperature was even higher than yesterday. Dad drove the car into the yard and then locked the gate with an iron chain. For the old house has a basement. We need to finish the remaining work quickly before the sun gets too intense. I took out a home generator and fiddled with it with my dad for a while, connecting it to the basement's electrical circuit. There are 3 rooms in the basement, all equipped with air conditioning. We installed several pinhole cameras at the 4 corners of the house's exterior walls and hidden spots on the first floor, allowing us to monitor the surroundings at any time. Apply privacy window films on every first-floor window, draw the curtains, and place solar panels on the roof. Mom cleared out 2 rooms in the basement for resting, tidied up the first-floor kitchen, and prepared a simple meal. After the meal, together we worked to completely seal the main gate from the inside using the remaining cement materials in the yard. Finally settled in here, Dad quickly notified the uncles in the village to stock up on supplies. The abnormally high temperatures and all the doomsday talk online mean no one will suspect us. Seeing Dad hesitate, I spoke up. Okay, I'll make the call right now. Fortunately, rural households grow crops and vegetables, so every family had some rice and vegetables at home. Hearing my father's solemn warning about extreme high temperatures and the government's call for people to stock up on water and food, They immediately sent several uncles to town to purchase supplies collectively. After dinner, I picked up my phone to check for any news online. I saw dozens of missed calls, some from Griffin's mom and others from unknown numbers, which I knew must be from Thorn. When the phone rang again, I answered it with schadenfreude. Griffin's mother angrily questioned. Echo, was it you who reported Griffin? He's been taken away now. Who got taken away? Oh, that scumbag who brought his ex-girlfriend to harass me. I lay on the sofa eating chilled watermelon, utterly relaxed. No need to thank me, this is the retribution he deserves. With that, I hung up the phone. I don't need to hear it to know how vicious Griffin's mom's scolding was, but soon she won't be able to curse anymore. On the last day of the holiday, I woke up early from the heat. The air conditioning could barely hold back the heat wave outside, and soon the power system would collapse. Checking the weather on my phone, it was already 52 degrees, the internet is flooded with doomsday theories, and supermarkets are packed with people frantically hoarding food. On social apps, my earlier warning about stockpiling supplies has been pushed to the top of trending comments. Government response. The extreme heat caused by solar anomalies prompts citizens to stock up on water and food, staying indoors as much as possible. One day left until the heatwave apocalypse. I received another message from the same number that warned me last time. Griffin was detained for illegal possession of firearms, but with the nationwide chaos, they managed to escape. A group is heading to your place now. Stay hidden and stay safe. Why are you helping me? Who are you really? Blaze, I remember now. He was Griffin's college classmate. While searching for supplies, we encountered Blaze, who was desperately seeking medicine for his younger sister. Before the apocalypse began, I awakened a spatial ability, so I stockpiled large amounts of supplies and medicine. It was precisely because of these resources that Griffin was able to establish a survivor base, without the slightest hesitation. I gave them the medicine and saved his sister's life. Later, he naturally joined us on the journey until we established the base. How did you end up getting involved with Griffin? Blaze chuckled softly. A few days ago, he suddenly contacted me, saying the apocalypse was coming and he wanted to form a team, asking if I'd join. You believed him just because he said it was the end of the world, because I also. The rest goes without saying between us. Blaze is also reborn, in my past life. My medicine saved his sister, which is why he warned me to be careful of Griffin. The team members have already left one after another, leaving him without many helpers. Finally, Blaze told me that after Griffin was released from detention, he asked Blaze to go to City S and bring back the supplies he had stockpiled in advance. Over these days, Blaze had already realized that Griffin was a good-for-nothing, lacking the capability to establish a base like in their previous life. So he and his sister ran away with Griffin's supplies. They ran away with Griffin's supplies. Ha ha ha, I couldn't help but burst into laughter. To not miss Griffin's miserable state, I used a tablet to monitor both the home and the convenience store. Without space or supplies, how can their love continue? The night grew darker. Before long, the door of the small supermarket was smashed open. Griffin stared dumbfounded at the empty floor. Even the shelves had been cleared out from the small supermarket. Suddenly remembering something, he turned and rushed out again. I switched to the home surveillance feed, and saw Griffin wandering between rooms like a headless fly. I couldn't resist activating the living room camera's intercom. Griffin, what are you doing in my house? Did you quit being the base leader? 5. Griffin jumped at the sound, taking a long moment to realize I was speaking through the surveillance system. Echo, have you also come back? What are you talking about? I don't understand. I stubbornly denied. You must have come back too. You're blaming me, aren't you? I was truly wrong in our past life. I only wanted to teach you a lesson. I never meant to kill you. Thorn's death drove me mad, but I still love you. Now that we've both returned this time, let's live well together. The three of us can join forces to survive the apocalypse. By the way, I've kept the bracelet safe for you. Where are you? I'll bring it to you now. Griffin fawned shamelessly. Ha, Griffin. We both know why you took the bracelet. Do you really think I'm stupid enough to trust you again? The apocalypse has only just begun. You and Thorn enjoy yourselves. With that, the communication was cut. Echo, you. Griffin began shouting at the surveillance cameras, alternating between groveling and swearing oaths to the heavens, then screaming curses at me. The performance lasted a good half hour before he finally quieted down. Bah. I must have been blind in my past life to have fallen for such a thing. Just 1 week into the apocalypse, and many have already died. The outdoor temperature has soared above 60 degrees, forcing residents to run air conditioning 24/7 to stay cool, but the power grid can't handle the load, and some areas have already started experiencing blackouts, the second week of the apocalypse. People online began wailing and crying for help. Many had insufficient food reserves. Facing shortages of water and supplies, the second month, I turned on the home surveillance camera, intending to mess with Griffin and his clown friends. Let me go, let go of me, Griffin, help me. Two burly men were dragging Thorn toward the room. Thorn clung to the living room coffee table with both hands, glaring fixedly at Griffin. Griffin and his mother were sharing a bowl of instant noodles without even looking up. The burly man in the black vest slapped Thorn and cursed, "You damn bitch. You eat my food and drink my stuff. What's wrong with sleeping with me? All this time, it's been me and my brother risking our lives outside to scavenge supplies. Your man is just a weakling, a cripple. He traded you for a pack of instant noodles. If you're not willing, plenty others are." The man in the gray vest puffed on his cigarette butt. "In times like these, a pack of noodles can buy you any chick to ride." Watching Griffin, who was once praised to the skies before the apocalypse but is now being scolded like a grandson without daring to talk back, Thorn let go, his face ashen as he was dragged into the room. The Nash Damian brothers completely broke ties with Griffin and his mother. Driven outside, Griffin and his mother could only take shelter in a small supermarket, relying on the Nash brothers' charity for food every 3 or 4 days. That day, as soon as the Nash brothers stepped out, Griffin sneaked upstairs to find Thorn. I quickly switched to the home surveillance, where Griffin was kneeling before Thorn in repentance. "Thorn, it's all my fault, but I was also deceived by Echo. She gave me a bracelet. She must have been reborn too. In our past life, she stockpiled supplies early. We must find her." Thorn no longer pretended to be meek, hands on hips as they scolded, "Griffin, you freeloader, get out now. The Nash brothers will be back any minute. What space? Where are the supplies?" Nash, revealing his muscular arms, grabbed Griffin by the throat and lifted him off the ground. Let me go, put me down." Griffin was thrown to the ground like a dead dog, coughing for a long time. Just as they were discussing how to find me, I sneered and sent a message in the neighborhood group chat. "Neighbors, my family and I are stranded out of town and can't return, but there's a hidden room in my house, originally partitioned during renovation for storing, which still has some supplies left. Feel free to take what you need. However, there's currently a group of occupying my home, so please be careful if you go." After speaking, I took screenshots from the home surveillance, circling the hidden door in the storage room where Nash and the others had gathered supplies, along with several boxes of snacks and instant noodles stored there. One night a few days later, several shadowy figures sneaked in through my kitchen window. The Nash brothers were busy playing a 3-person game with Thorn and didn't notice the faint noises outside the door. Enjoying the cool breeze and some snacks, I watched the drama unfold with my parents. On the surveillance footage, Griffin was lying on the sofa in my living room. His mother ate the least and was already barely breathing. She had been left in a small supermarket to die a few days earlier. The shadowy figure slipped in quietly, swiftly covering Griffin's mouth and nose, and he passed out within seconds. After binding his limbs, 6 shadowy figures approached the door and heard the sounds of a man and woman playing inside. 6. The shadowy figures worked in coordination. One shone a powerful flashlight, another kicked the door open, while the rest wielded iron rods, striking wildly. Before Nash, Thorn and the other 2 could react, they were beaten to death with the rods while still in bed. Following the photos I had shared in the group, the shadowy figures looted all the supplies cleanly before slipping away silently through the window. No one noticed Griffin in the corner. Griffin woke up in the middle of the night, but unfortunately his limbs were tied and he couldn't move. As soon as he woke up, he screamed for help. But unfortunately his companions had died earlier than him. After struggling for a long time, he finally managed to crawl from the living room floor to the bedroom, only to find that the others were already dead, lying hopelessly on the floor. He suddenly remembered the camera in the living room. "Echo, are you there? Please come save me." "Echo," I couldn't help but sneer. "That's right, I'm watching how you wait for death, Echo." I was momentarily bewitched by Thorn. "But the only one I love in my heart is you, only you. Come back, let's live well together. I'll love you for a lifetime, I swear." I promised not to glance at another woman again. Watching his clownishly inept performance filled me with indescribable delight. late at night, I fell into a deep sleep listening to his desperate cries. After 3 days without food or water, Griffin had no energy left to perform. His face was gaunt, his eyes sunken like a human skeleton lying on the floor. Only his eyeballs still moving. Seeing him in such a miserable state every day brings me immense satisfaction. I can even eat an extra bowl of rice at every meal. A week later, that humanoid figure hadn't moved for a long time. I turned off the surveillance and stopped paying attention. Half a year later, Mom and Dad prepared a table full of delicious dishes. Today is Chinese New Year. Let's make a wish. Hope the apocalypse ends soon. Suddenly, a loudspeaker announcement echoed faintly from high above. Supplies will be airdropped weekly. Those in need should hang bright-colored clothing by their windows. Please hold on a little longer. Spring is coming soon. This uplifting voice moved me to tears. The apocalypse is finally coming to an end. Story 2. My boyfriend and I have a great relationship. The only downside is his overly strong possessiveness towards me, though thankfully, he usually keeps it under control. But I never imagined that one day he would knock me unconscious and stuff me into a car. Before I passed out, with the last bit of clarity, I seriously considered, what is he planning to do? Help, help, who? Awakened, I opened my eyes, just in time to see several people being thrown out of the way by an SUV. Dark red blood splattered on the car window glass, looking particularly horrifying. I gasped for breath, immediately sat up, and looked in panic at Wilbert, who continued to press the accelerator. Stop the car, you hit someone. Has he gone mad? In broad daylight, he was driving recklessly on the road, but hearing my frantic plea, Wilbert didn't stop the car. Instead, he reminded me, look carefully. Are those people? What? I was stunned, and looked out the window again. Even though the car was moving fast, it didn't obstruct my view. Were those people? They moved slowly, their bodies stiff, their complexions ashen, eyes completely white, and their bodies stained with dark red blood, some even missing parts of their bodies, only skeletons remaining, yet still staggering forward. The surrounding area was chaotic. The ground that should have been clean was covered with dark red bloodstains, and there were cars smashed and twisted out of shape. Recalling the movies I had seen, I couldn't believe it and exclaimed, zombies. Fear surged in my heart. I curled up in the middle of the back seat, hands over my mouth, muffling my screams. Buckle up, I'm going to speed up. Wilbert aggressively stepped on the accelerator. The SUV had plenty of power. As we drove, I saw many zombies being hit and thrown aside, but this didn't give me enough sense of security. Seeing more and more bloodstains on the car window glass, I stifled my discomfort and asked, where are we going now? Shouldn't we find a safe place to hide? Wilbert calmly answered, too many people in the city. We're going back to my home, in the countryside. The countryside. Sparse population, fewer zombies than in the city. It seemed indeed a good place to go. We can't take the highway. There are definitely a lot of cars now. Once it gets blocked, we won't be able to move. There are many other roads. We'll switch if one is blocked. As Wilbert was turning the steering wheel, just as he finished speaking, our view was blocked by a truck that covered most of the road, and partially by a bus with a dented body. I could even see zombies inside continuously banging their heads against the glass. My goodness, what luck Wilbert had, to choose such a road. Reverse, hurry, reverse. I was terrified, nervously clutching the back of the seat, whispering anxiously, if this road is blocked, then we'll find another. But clearly, Wilbert had a different idea. He continued to drive forward, knocking the wandering zombies aside, then sharply turned the steering wheel. A sudden brake, and the SUV stopped just right between the truck and the bus, forming a triangle. What are you doing? I was frantic. Looking back, the noise had already attracted zombies toward us. The longer we delay, the more dangerous it gets. We don't know what the road conditions ahead are like, but they're probably not good. We need a big truck to clear the way, and there might be supplies in the truck. We can't miss that opportunity. After saying this, Wilbert pulled out 2 gleaming machetes from the passenger seat and handed one to me. Keep this for self-defense. I'll clear the driver's cabin. The machete felt heavy in my hand as I watched Wilbert opening the door. Would a normal person keep machetes in their car? Before I could figure it out, Wilbert had already stepped out of the vehicle and cleaved a zombie, whose legs were crushed but was still crawling on the ground. Seeing the brain matter spreading out, gray-white mixed with dark red blood, I couldn't help but tremble. instinctively wanting to hide in the car and not get out, but it was too dangerous for Wilbert to be out there alone. Shivering, I pushed open the car door, trying hard to control my trembling body, and clutched the machete tightly, whispering lowly, I'll keep watch. But at that moment, Wilbert was too busy to pay attention to me. Two zombies on the truck, smelling human scent, lunged down directly. Wilbert moved swiftly, swinging his blade at the exact moment one zombie hit the ground, splattering brain matter everywhere. The other zombie, with its jaws wide open, was quickly dealt with by Wilbert, who ducked and twisted behind it, standing up to deliver another decisive chop. After taking care of the two zombies, the immediate threat was neutralized. I looked down, feeling queasy, only to see a withered hand moving beneath the truck. My scalp tingled, my body tensed, and I bit my lip hard, stepping back. What to do? What to do? Zombies won't stop attacking just because I'm scared. Forcing myself to calm down, I gripped the handle of the machete, raised it high, and swung it down with all my might toward the zombie's head. Oh, the blow was too weak. The machete got stuck. Your angle was off. Next time, remember to angle the blade slightly upward and aim for the head, Wilbert instructed. Noticing the zombie crawling out from under the truck and stepping in to help after my half-successful attempt, he swung his blade, and half of the zombie's head flew off, rolling on the ground as brain matter spilled everywhere. Seeing this, I couldn't help but retch. You'll get used to it. Wilbert patted my back casually. Think of it as mulberry fruit tea with added pudding. Does that make it a bit better? I gagged. Even harder to stomach. Get in the car, Wilbert said. I looked up to see some zombies were only 3 or 4 meters from the SUV. Let's go. Wilbert quickly climbed into the truck's driver's cabin, and I bent to crawl into the SUV. Just as I was pulling the door shut, I looked up at the truck's driver's cabin and was shocked to see an arm, skin and bones, pale gray, stretching out from behind the seat. Thank goodness I'm not nearsighted and have excellent vision. In a burst of adrenaline, I grabbed the machete and quickly climbed onto the truck. At that moment, sensing the danger, Wilbert had already made his move. The machete pierced through the mouth of a smaller zombie, pinning it to the back seat. As I breathed a sigh of relief, my heart ached. They were a family of 3, right? Wilbert didn't respond to my comment but instead seriously advised, next time, don't be so reckless. Put your own safety first. That's not acceptable. I shook my head. You save me when I'm in danger, but I must help when you're in danger too. Wilbert pinched my cheek expressionlessly and said, save the sweet nothings for the bedroom. My cheeks instantly flushed. With the truck leading the way, our journey became much smoother. Upon reaching the town, the number of visible zombies decreased significantly, and by the time we entered the rural areas, they were few and far between on the roads. Wilbert drove the truck over them relentlessly. As gruesome as it was, each zombie crushed meant a glimmer more hope for the living. Whenever any got through, I would suppress my discomfort and ram them with the SUV. Just like that, we continued until the truck halted at an intersection. Wilbert got out with a machete, causing me to look around anxiously, fearing sudden zombie appearances. Fortunately, all was safe. Wilbert went to open the truck's cargo area, and I hurried out to help, hoping desperately for food, but reality was disappointing. The cargo area was filled with bedding sets, comforters, and pillows. There was only a little food, belonging to that family of 3. Wilbert, however, seemed pleased. I kept watch while he opened the SUV's trunk, flattened the back seats, and started moving comforters, which were vacuum-packed and not very bulky. He moved 30 of them before stopping. He grabbed a few pillows, and as for the bedding sets, after removing the cardboard inside, he stuffed them into the trunk. Finally, seeing space in the middle row, he added 10 more comforters. We won't use up so many, I said. Wilbert pushed me into the car, visibly downcast. We'll need them. My heart sank. Did Wilbert know something? Wilbert, you knocked me out. There's a machete in the car. You know the zombie's weakness. And now you want all these comforters. I paused, unable to continue, as Wilbert got into the car and was about to step on the gas. He looked solemn. I've come back from 6 months in the future. 3 months after the zombies appeared. A cold snap hit. What? I stared at him incredulously, struggling to find my voice. A cold snap? No. What do you mean you've come back from 6 months in the future? Wilbert turned to embrace me, leaning forward until his forehead touched mine. I've been reborn, Adela. Trust me, I will protect you this time. He looked into my eyes, his promise firm, yet, I saw an inextinguishable sadness in his eyes. Wilbert had been reborn. What had happened in that half-year he lived through? But this time, I got no answers. We'll talk about it later. Another stretch of road passed, and as the SUV turned onto a concrete road, Wilbert's mood grew even more somber, especially as he ran over the zombies drawn by the noise, his lips pressed tightly together. I could guess the probable reason. Wilbert knew them. I placed my hand on his arm and asked softly, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. How can someone who's alive not be okay?" Hearing Wilbert murmur quietly, my heart sank. His words didn't sound like those of someone who was all right. How much longer until we get there? I changed the subject. 15 minutes. Wilbert's estimate was precise. 15 minutes later, the SUV stopped in front of a 3-story building's gate. To my surprise, there were people inside. "Who's there?" A cautious voice called from behind the thick iron gate. "Dad, open the door." "It's me." Hearing Wilbert's words, I was utterly astonished. I remembered that Wilbert's parents had opened a martial arts gym in another city and only returned to their hometown for the new year. It wasn't the holiday season now. Surely, his rebirth must have prompted them to come back. At that moment, the gate opened. "We're here to see my parents." Wilbert drove in, parking the SUV beside the perimeter wall. The reinforced iron gate closed immediately. Through the car window, I observed the joyous faces of the two elders, feeling a bit nervous. "Wilbert, will your parents like me?" I hadn't brought any supplies, clearly freeloading at a time when food was scarce during the apocalypse. Wilbert turned, grasped my wrist firmly, and said earnestly, "Don't worry, my parents will definitely like you." I was surprised. Why would they? "Adela, you are so naive, too naive." When the car door opened, Wilbert and I got out together. To my surprise, his aunt and uncle glanced at Wilbert. Then both looked at me excitedly. His aunt even came over to embrace me, tears gleaming in her eyes. I was baffled and somewhat alarmed. Wilbert hadn't mentioned that his parents would react this way. "Mom, Adela doesn't know anything, don't scare her." Wilbert spoke calmly, giving a gentle reminder. Oh. His aunt let go, wiping the tears from her face, her tone incredibly soft. "Adela, you must be hungry. Wilbert mentioned you like hot pot, and I've prepared everything. Let's eat first." She took my hand and led me toward the kitchen. I turned to look at Wilbert, eager to understand the reason behind his parents' warmth. "Let's eat first." Wilbert smiled relaxedly at that moment, but my mind was filled with countless questions. "Right, let's eat first," his aunt continued. Entering the kitchen, I was brought to the table to sit down. I never imagined that my first meal after the apocalypse could be so lavish. A full table of my favorite dishes. "Eat up, help yourself to whatever you want." That was his aunt's invitation, but I never really got the chance to serve myself. She and Wilbert kept serving me food, while my uncle was busy pouring me drinks. Every time I took a sip, he made sure to refill my glass. "Uncle and Auntie, please eat too." This special treatment was both flattering and awkward. My toes, fidgeting in my shoes, wished they could burrow a hole to hide in. "All right, we'll eat." "Wilbert, make sure to take care of Adela. Don't just eat by yourself," Auntie instructed Wilbert. "Mom, I will." He then served me a boneless duck foot. I blinked in confusion. It seemed that Wilbert hadn't even had a bite yet. "You should eat too." I quickly served him a beef roll. Wilbert's parents smiled even more brightly. "Let's all eat. There's more in the fridge if we run out." After the meal, I felt incredibly pressured. I even had the illusion that I was the biological daughter of Wilbert's parents, and Wilbert was just someone they picked up from a trash heap, insignificant. "What did you tell them?" Outside in the yard, where I was turned down from helping with the dishes, I whispered and moved closer to Wilbert to ask, but he didn't answer, instead changing the subject at a normal volume. "Let's go see the room. We won't be moving for now." "Yes, let's not move. Who knows what it's like outside now. The village is less crowded, safer." Hearing this, Auntie, who was washing dishes, chimed in. "It's all thanks to Adela, otherwise our family wouldn't be able to stay safe at home." She added with a sigh. I was confused. I was just freeloaded. I didn't contribute anything. Wilbert grabbed my wrist. "Come on, let's go see our supplies." Right? Wilbert had mentioned that he was reborn. He must have hoarded quite a bit of food, not giving me any room to fantasize. Wilbert reached out to push the living room door. It seemed a bit difficult. "Take it slow. It'll take a long time to clean up if the cardboard boxes fall." Uncle came over to help. As the door opened wider, I was stunned by the mountainous piles of cardboard boxes. I wasn't naive enough to think those layers of boxes were empty. Had they moved a wholesale market into their home, we probably won't be short of clothes or food for a while. Wilbert said as he took my hand, "Let's go in and see." "Your room is on the second floor, Wilbert. Watch out for Adela, don't let the boxes fall on her," Uncle warned. I walked stiffly behind Wilbert through the narrow corridor that barely fit one person. Just a few steps in, I stopped. "What's that noise?" A buzzing sound. Wilbert pointed to the right. "There's a freezer in that room." I silently gave a thumbs up, so thoughtful, seeing the staircase also piled high with boxes. I managed to keep my composure, but I was still concerned. Buying so much stuff, aren't you afraid others will see? Having too many supplies could also be a problem. Human nature is unpredictable. Wilbert began with a smile. "Don't worry, every household in the village has surplus food." When my dad came back, he told the villagers about the epidemic outside, and everyone got worried and stocked up a lot. Who in the countryside doesn't have seeds? There's a vegetable garden in the yard. Just plant it, and soon we'll have food. As for water, we have a well at home. It hasn't been contaminated by zombies, so it's safe to use, just in case. The basement is filled with 2 rooms full of bottled drinking water. I sighed in relief. That's good to hear. During our talk, we reached the second floor. It was just like before, boxes piled up to the ceiling. I was puzzled. Is there no staple food? I didn't see rice, flour, oil, or seasonings. They're all in the basement. The rice and flour are stored in sealed barrels. They'll keep. Hearing Wilbert's words made me happy. He had really thought of everything. We walked through the corridor to a room. Surprisingly, what caught my eye were not boxes, but wooden cabinets. Things like clothes and quilts are all here. Wilbert raised his hand. I nodded. Each cabinet was labeled quilts, bedding sets, pillows, coats, down jackets, and so on. Upon opening, everything was packed in vacuum bags to save as much space as possible. Your mom is really impressive. These tasks might seem simple, but they require a lot of effort. Who knows when zombies will be completely eradicated? It's better to be safe than sorry. Besides, the cold wave hasn't subsided for 3 months. Hearing Wilbert's words, I was quietly shocked. Life before the apocalypse was so good. I truly hope it can be restored soon. What's in here? Curious, I pulled open an unmarked drawer. Inside, in the next second, I quickly shut the drawer. Stuttering, let's look at something else." Wilbert chuckled softly and pulled the drawer open again, looking at its contents with a calm expression. "It's just some bedding. Why are you blushing?" I was frustrated and emphasized in a low voice. "You call this bedding?" Wilbert, unfazed and serious, replied, "Yes, it can be used under the bed too. Let's try it tonight." I was utterly disconcerted, thankful that it was just the 2 of us in the room. "Let's look at something else." I was about to turn away when Wilbert grabbed me. He leaned in slightly, looking directly into my eyes with a lowered voice. "Want to see something else? Am I not good enough?" I struggled to avoid his gaze, truly at a loss for words. Wilbert isn't reincarnated. He must be possessed. Just kidding. Let's go up to the 3rd floor. Wilbert pinched my somewhat plump cheek, stood up straight, and slid his arm to hold my hand, explaining, "There are solar panels installed on the roof." Wow, this is really possible. However, isn't there a cold wave? It won't freeze and break, will it? I was a bit worried. No, the thin film solar panels won't break from freezing. Wilbert's words gave me a sigh of relief. We have food and clothing, so what's stored on the 3rd floor? I was curious. Wilbert continued holding my hand. "Let's go see now." But as soon as we took a step, we heard a loud clang as the iron gate was struck forcefully. Such a loud noise could attract the zombies nearby. I was panic-stricken. While Wilbert rushed to the window to see whether it was a person or, "What is it?" I asked anxiously. "Dogs, zombie dogs." Wilbert's face darkened as he turned and ran downstairs. I hurriedly followed. In the yard, upon seeing Wilbert, my uncle and aunt, as if seeing their pillar of strength, quickly spoke in a low voice. "Wilbert, this dog is fierce." My aunt held a phone displaying the surveillance footage of the zombie dog pounding at the door. "Mom, get some raw meat. Dad, fetch a steel pipe." Adela, help tie the meat to the pipe. Wilbert quickly assigned tasks. After we scrambled to get everything ready, he took the machete from the SUV and stood behind the main door. "Mom and Dad, brace the door. Adela, hold the steel pipe out." and don't retract it until I stab the zombie dog. Can you do that? Facing Wilbert's solemn gaze, I took a deep breath and nodded firmly. Don't worry, I can do it. I had fought zombies before. Using meat to lure a zombie dog should be no problem. Let me do it. A girl shouldn't be doing something so dangerous, my uncle said. We all have to get used to it. Wilbert gripped my hand holding the pipe, gave an encouraging squeeze, then urged, hurry. The louder the noise, the more dangerous it gets. He pulled me forward, then let go to open the door. Seeing this, my uncle and aunt quickly pressed their bodies against the iron gate, leaving only a small gap for the pipe. Wilbert was right, we had to get used to it. I gripped the steel pipe tightly, took a deep breath, and smelled a foul, nauseating stench. The zombie dog, drawn by the scent of humans, lunged even more fiercely, its fur falling off, seeing the bones of the zombie dog exposed. My scalp tingled. I tried to stay calm, carefully extending the pipe, trying to keep my arms from shaking. As the zombie dog lunged forward, I held my breath nervously, even squinting in fear, leaving just a small slit. Compared to me, Wilbert was much calmer. With quick eyes and quick hands, he thrust the machete through the gap in the door, pinning the zombie dog about to bite the meat firmly to the ground. His movements were smooth and clean, as if he had done this thousands of times before. Immediately, everything went quiet around us. I felt an immense relief and sighed deeply. Closed the door. Wilbert pulled out a machete while I quickly stepped back, retracting the steel pipe, and Uncle immediately secured the front door tightly. Is that dog lying at the door going to be okay? Aunt looked worried, and I was concerned too. It's fine for now. We'll spray some disinfectant on it and move it later. For the moment, it can help mask our scent. Wilbert's calm words were somewhat reassuring. That dog must be from old Chen's at the end of the village. I wonder how he's doing now. Uncle shook his head and sighed, his mood low. Aunt brought the disinfectant, pouring it through the crack under the door, her heart heavy. The entire village. I don't know how many of us will survive. Mom, Dad, let's focus on ourselves first, Wilbert said sternly. After the cold wave hits, the zombies will lose their mobility. We just need to hold out for 3 months, Wilbert stated the facts, allowing us to breathe a sigh of relief. But holding out for 3 months is easier said than done. Suddenly, a buzzing sound came from above. We looked up to see a drone hovering nearby, dangling a black plastic bag, which quickly stopped in front of Wilbert. He reached out to grab the bag, watching as the drone flew away, his expression one of annoyance, clearly upset about forgetting to prepare. Indeed, having a drone would allow for constant surveillance of our surroundings and early detection and elimination of zombies, but he was just one person. He couldn't cover everything. Drones can't fill our stomachs, I muttered under my breath. Wilbert heard and a hint of a smile appeared in his eyes. What's inside? Asked Uncle, with Aunt also looking curious. A walkie-talkie, a charging cable, and a piece of paper. Wilbert examined the contents. It's the frequency for the walkie-talkie. He pulled me by the hand to the kitchen. Let's talk inside. Once inside, and the door closed, I immediately asked worriedly, if they have drones, could our stuff inside the house be seen? Aunt laughed and explained, don't worry, all our windows are fitted with one-way glass, installed on Wilbert's advice. No one can see inside. Relieved, Wilbert switched on the walkie-talkie. Wilbert, it's your brother Webster. I know of a grain factory that has just acquired a batch of rice and soybeans. Shall we go get some? There aren't many alive in the village. We can't afford to lose any more. His words carried an inexplicable sadness. Our hearts were heavy. In these end times, surviving was truly difficult. At that moment, Uncle gestured for silence and then took the walkie-talkie to ask Webster about the current situation in the village. Aunt quietly told me his identity. He was Wilbert's cousin, the grandson of Grandpa Wu, and currently a village official. Drones were standard issue for his work, used to check if anyone was burning straw during the farming season. Now, they were proving very useful. We'll discuss and contact you again at 6 tonight. After learning about the situation in the village, Uncle turned off the walkie-talkie. Aunt, worried, spoke up. We have food at home, and it's so dangerous outside. I knew she didn't want anyone to risk going out. If the village really decides to go to the grain factory, can we remain uninvolved? Over the following week, we stayed in touch with Webster to keep updated on the village situation. The 4 of us worked together to unpack all the materials, sorting them by category and arranging them according to their expiration dates. We covered all the windows with several thick layers of cardboard to prevent light leakage at night. Wilbert mentioned that the power would be cut off completely soon, after finishing these tasks. On the evening of the 8th day, we arranged with Webster to set out early the next morning to head to the grain factory. Although Wilbert had taken me out these past few days to train in fighting zombies, facing the unknown dangers of the grain factory made me uncontrollably nervous. Wilbert, what if we can't make it back tomorrow? In the bed, I snuggled closer to him, my breathing uneven. Wilbert held my hand tightly, whispering close to me, I won't let anything happen to you, absolutely not. It was the second time he had said this. Looking into his calm eyes, I felt a sense of peace and gave him a light peck on the lips. Let's sleep now, we need to wake up early tomorrow. Perhaps it was my subconscious trying to conserve energy, but I slept well that night. I was awake when Wilbert got up, looking at my wristwatch. 7 o'clock. Time to get up, after getting ready and having breakfast. Wilbert and I put on leather jackets, donned protective gear, and got ready to leave in the car. My uncle and aunt stayed behind. Don't forget the gloves, shoe covers, especially the face shields. My aunt reminded us, Mom, Dad, make sure to lock the door. We're heading out now, Wilbert said as he reversed the car. I sat in the back seat, holding onto a machete, trying to adjust my mindset. Wilbert and we must return safely. The grain factory was about 18 kilometers from the village. Normally, a round trip took an hour and a half, but it would undoubtedly take longer now. Once on the main road, Webster and his team had switched to a large truck parked by the roadside. A drone had previously discovered bedding in the truck, and while Webster organized a road clearing, he had already moved the bedding to the village, distributing it among the households. I looked at the empty truck and felt happy. At least everyone can be a bit more comfortable during the cold wave. You played a part in that. Wilbert turned to look at me. I had barely started speaking when Webster interrupted. Aren't you guys getting on the truck? He rolled down his window to ask again. Wilbert shook his head. In case there are particularly narrow paths, it's better to have more vehicles, more options. The drone had only 2 batteries, each lasting only half an hour, so we saved them for crucial moments. No one knew what the road ahead held. Then keep close, Webster said as he rolled up the window and the truck started moving. Let's talk more when we get home, Wilbert said, looking forward and stepping on the accelerator. I nodded in agreement. Right. With the truck leading, we followed closely behind, highly alert. As we passed a supermarket, we could clearly hear the sounds of a fight inside. It seemed we weren't the only ones out searching for supplies. Everyone knew supermarkets had plenty of goods. This area is very crowded and dangerous. I hope there are fewer zombies at the grain factory, I prayed softly. 2 hours later, after turning a corner, I saw the towering grain factory warehouse and the zombies staggering nearby. Hearing the noise, the zombies turned and stumbled towards the truck, which then mercilessly ran them over. At the same time, a drone flew into the grain factory warehouse to inspect the situation inside. I hope there are still survivors. I took a deep breath and gripped the handle of my machete tightly. The doors are wide open. Even if there are survivors, there won't be many, Wilbert spoke gravely, reaching for the walkie-talkie. You lead the way. I'll rush in first, block the door immediately with the truck, and you guys get on the SUV. Our goal isn't to kill zombies, but to gather food. We can't afford to waste time. Soon, the truck cleared a path, and Wilbert sped toward the gate. The truck reversed and blocked the gate sideways. Wilbert, driving the SUV, rammed into some of the incoming zombies. No survivors found. About a dozen zombies in the grain warehouse, and 2 trucks loaded with food. At that moment, a piece of good news came through the walkie-talkie. The trucks were already loaded with food, which saved us the effort of moving it and reduced the danger. Prepare to get off. Wilbert steered the SUV and quickly stopped it alongside the truck. The roof hatch opened, and 5 people climbed in one after another, each armed with the same weapon. On their long steel pikes, thin axe blades for chopping rapeseed stalks were welded, shining brightly. Wilbert closed the roof hatch and drove straight to the warehouse, stopping by the truck at the back. From a bird's-eye view, the drone captured a clear image between the 2 trucks. The front one was against the wall. About a dozen zombies were trapped as the area around the back truck was blocked by forklifts. Once we dealt with these zombies, we could drive away the 2 trucks filled with food, get out through the roof hatch and stand on the truck to draw the zombies and deal with them, Wilbert instructed. Soon, the 7 of us split into 3 groups, Naturally, I was with Wilbert. In the midst of it all, Webster and others suggested that I stay behind in the SUV. But Wilbert disagreed. Either we all live together, or we all die together. A moment later, I stood on the truck, trying to steady myself, gripping the handle of my knife tightly. Compared to my readiness, Wilbert seemed calm, his machete felling a zombie with every swing. I gritted my teeth, watching the approaching zombies, and with both hands, I swung my blade. Webster and the others were quick too, but limited by their weapons. Their efficiency was just about on par with mine, though far behind Wilbert's. "Ah, be careful." Suddenly, a cry of alarm. Instinctively, I turned my head only to see something flying towards me. In front of me, one person was left holding only a steel pipe, the axe welded to it gone, his eyes filled with panic. Either get chopped by an axe wielded by a zombie, or jump off the vehicle to confront them head-on. Given my position, I had no third option. In a split second, not wanting to implicate Wilbert, I leapt from the vehicle. In my haste, I knocked a zombie to the ground. Facing a zombie, its face rotting and only one eyeball remaining, I was terrified to my core. The overwhelming stench was so strong it made my eyes hurt. As the zombie prepared to lift its arm to attack, I instinctively raised my hand to press down. My back arched, my whole body tensed. At that moment, I was truly grateful to my aunt. The face shield she insisted I wear saved my life, even as the zombie opened its mouth wide. The transparent plastic prevented it from biting me, but the crisis was far from over. Besides the one beneath me, there were several more zombies nearby. At that moment, I could feel their gazes on me. My heart raced to my throat, and I dared not even breathe. Wilbert, in the midst of Webster's alarmed shout, I heard someone land. It was Wilbert coming down, but I didn't dare move or turn my head. If a zombie bit my exposed ear, I would be done for. "Don't worry, I'm here." Wilbert's deep voice calmed my frantic heart. In that moment, the sound of his machete slicing through the air was unusually pleasing. "Don't move." Watching the chilling glint of the machete as it plunged into a zombie's head, I couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. I was saved. "Get up." Looking up at Wilbert's outstretched hand, I reached up to grasp it, just as I saw a zombie's head rolling towards us. Even just a severed head could still bite, and it was heading straight for Wilbert's leg. In case it bit him, I quickly grabbed Wilbert's hand, using it to pull myself up, and kicked the zombie's head away. Wilbert, noticing my action, turned and his expression grew colder. He lifted his machete and chopped off the nearest zombie's head, then looked up and said, "You've double-crossed us twice." I'm sorry." A man with glasses apologized. If I had been bitten, would I be alive to hear "sorry"? Wilbert was cold and with a backhand stroke, he sent another half of a zombie's head flying. The others on the truck had various expressions. The man said no more, and Webster awkwardly tried to change the subject. "Let's deal with the zombies first." I picked up the fallen machete, gripping it tightly. Now Wilbert and I were on the ground. Facing the zombies was even riskier, but fortunately, there were only two left, and we quickly dealt with them in perfect sync. "Come over here and help. Our weapons aren't doing the job." As soon as we were momentarily safe, someone immediately called for help. Clearly, however, Wilbert was not one to suffer losses gladly. "We'll take care of this truck. You handle the one in front." With that, the people on the truck were stunned. Someone muttered discontentedly, "But you guys are on the ground. And, just a few steps away." "If it's just a few steps away, then walk," I sneered sarcastically. What a foul mouth. I lifted the machete and aimed it at the zombie's mouth, swinging it forcefully. Damn, it was supposed to be a cool move, but because it was just ahead and I didn't have enough strength, the machete only went halfway through. Wilbert quickly curled the corner of his mouth. "Put it down." I immediately did as he said. He stepped on it, and I pulled out the knife. "Get in the car." Remembering the small zombie in the truck last time, Wilbert got in first to check and then reached out to me. At that moment, another zombie staggered towards us from the other side. I quickly spotted the keys swinging at his waist. "Wilbert, the car keys." I spoke softly, annoyed with myself for not remembering something as important as the keys needed to drive. "Hurry up and get in. The keys are still in the ignition." Hearing Wilbert's words, I quickly grabbed his hand and got into the vehicle, only relaxing after I saw the keys properly inserted and closed the door. Wilbert pressed the gas pedal, and the truck slowly moved forward until it touched the truck in front of us. Then he turned around, knocked on the rear window to signal them to go to the truck in front. They were angry, but I was angrier. If Wilbert and I hadn't reacted quickly, we would have been bitten and turned into zombies by now. This kind of thing. Only this once. We will never go out again. I looked at Wilbert. Still frightened, Wilbert's voice was low. Seeing that we really had no intention of opening the door, the people behind finally reluctantly moved. Footsteps sounded overhead, and soon 5 people climbed into the truck in front. We're heading out first. Wilbert immediately reversed to leave. I looked in the rearview mirror. Now just 3 zombies were left in the warehouse. Lucky for them. After the truck's rear touched the SUV's front, the truck stopped again. Wilbert escorted me to the SUV and then returned to the truck. Many bags of flour were piled at the entrance of the warehouse, too good to waste. We reversed carefully, controlling the angle so that the 2 vehicles and the pile of flour formed a triangular safe zone, where we started loading bags of flour into the vehicles. Besides the front row where we sat, we stuffed the middle row and the trunk as full as possible. Lucky we filled up the car before leaving, I muttered thankfully. Wilbert continued to throw bags of flour onto the truck. The more the better. No one complains about having too much to eat. Finally, those 5 people managed to deal with the 3 zombies and successfully found the car keys. However, they weren't in a hurry to leave as there was temporarily no danger in the warehouse, and they wanted to load more food onto the vehicle. The truck outside is empty. We want to load some more food. After the truck couldn't hold any more, someone suddenly spoke up. They were all looking at Wilbert and me. Indeed, in dangerous situations, people's true natures are often revealed. I frowned, while Wilbert beside me snorted coldly and pushed me into the SUV, instructing, "I'll lead the way, just follow closely." I nodded in agreement and turned off the car's intercom. Shameless, really. Wilbert and I almost lost our lives because of their deception, and they still had the audacity to make demands. They can play their games without us, Wilbert. That truck has a large cargo hold. If it's fully loaded, it can hold more than these 2 trucks combined. This is a great opportunity. We can't miss it. Webster was getting anxious, but Wilbert mercilessly slammed the car door shut. Moving the truck that blocks the gate is risky. No matter how careful we are, some zombies will get inside. When it's time to move the food, someone will have to deal with the zombies, who will take on that task. Do they really think we will listen to them just because they are many? Shameless. After Wilbert and I drove away from the warehouse, the truck behind us immediately followed. I scoffed coldly, speechless. Aren't they supposed to continue moving the food? This time, only Webster entered the truck blocking the gate, leading the way as usual. The other truck followed closely, with Wilbert third and me at the back. But we hadn't gone far when suddenly, the door of the second truck opened and a figure was flung out. "Help! Help!" Zombies swarmed around, and a piercing scream filled the air. But that wasn't the end of it. Another person was thrown from the truck. From their posture, they were kicked out just like the first. After a few cries for help, there was silence. 2 people were overwhelmed by zombies, and my heart raced. What on earth was happening on that truck? I quickly reached for the walkie-talkie, and a voice of despair came through. "This bastard he got caught by a zombie, and not only did he not tell us, he doomed me, doomed us all." Bang! The out-of-control truck crashed into a roadside tree, breaking several before coming to a stop. No one spoke again through the walkie-talkie. Moments later, a rustling sound could be heard. None of the 4 people in the truck survived. "Are you listening?" Webster's heavy voice came through the walkie-talkie. "Yes," I responded. Moments later, Webster drove his truck and stopped alongside the crashed one. From behind, I could clearly see a hatchet sticking out of the window. Wilbert suggested going to deal with the 2 who had turned into zombies, but Webster refused. "They came because I called them. I'll handle it myself." The 2 mindless, attacking zombies were quickly lured off the truck by Webster. In the end, he couldn't bring himself to do it. Wearing the gloves I had driven over, Webster tossed a walkie-talkie stained with zombie blood to Wilbert. "Let's go back. Everyone is waiting for food to save their lives." He led the way back, and the journey was relatively smooth. By the time the trucks entered the village, it was already 3 in the afternoon. We had discussed it on the road. The flour in the SUV was ours. The food in the 2 trucks would be distributed per head. The 4 households would get a bit extra. Today was too exhausting. We would start distributing the food tomorrow. "We're finally back." My aunt, relieved, greeted us. "Quick, take it off." My uncle brought over a large iron basin. Wilbert and I threw in our protective suits, gloves, and anything else stained with zombie blood. burn all of these, and proceeded to give us a full-body alcohol disinfection. After finishing all these tasks, I kicked the button of the trunk. Look, this is what we've gathered from our trip. In the following days, Uncle drove out every day to help distribute food supplies. With these supplies, everyone could hold on for a longer period. A few days later, when the power and water outages occurred, Uncle brought back a drone on the last day of distributing supplies. Webster gave it, said you'd need it. Wilbert took the drone without saying much and directly went to charge it. In the countryside, unless specifically prepared, who would have solar panels at home? With the drone, Wilbert would fly it out every morning and afternoon. Whenever he spotted large crowds of zombies passing by, the drone would carry a red cloth and fly several laps around the village. At that time, the four of us would hide inside the house, close the doors and windows tightly, and sprinkle more floral water to mask our scent until the zombies had passed. The days passed dangerously but without incident, quickly approaching the day before the cold wave arrived. After the cold wave, will our lives return to normal? In bed, I snuggled up to Wilbert and asked curiously. Wilbert shook his head. I don't know. Indeed, Wilbert only lived 3 months after the cold wave. The highest temperature is around -40 degrees, with no lower limit, he continued. Hearing the specific temperature, I couldn't help but shiver. It was that low. No wonder the zombies would lose their mobility, not knowing to keep warm, their body fluids frozen solid, naturally immobilizing them. Cold, I'll turn on the electric blanket. Today, the bed was equipped with an electric blanket and 2 thick quilts. Turn it on, otherwise I'll definitely wake up frozen at night. Even so, during the night, I couldn't help but burrow into Wilbert's embrace. He was so warm. The next morning, I woke up and barely stuck my head out from under the quilt before shivering from the cold. So cold, but my skin felt itchy. A night under the electric blanket had dried it out. Wilbert reached out and grabbed a can of body lotion from the bedside table filled with bedding. Let me help you. I felt a bit panicked. Halfway through, Wilbert said something surprising. Remember to use a scrub the next time you bathe. It feels smoother. I chuckled dryly in response. After a while, I came downstairs for breakfast, dressed up like a ball, seeing my red face, and asked curiously, did you get a fever from the cold last night? I quickly shook my head in denial. No, I turned the electric blanket to the highest setting. I got overheated. Wilbert just stood by with a light smile, and I felt like rushing over to pinch his cheeks. That jerk. Let's have breakfast, then we'll all stay on the 3rd floor. Aunt pulled me to sit down. I've turned off several freezers. We'll warm up with the electric heating pad. I nodded repeatedly. Most of the rooms on the 3rd floor were filled with various supplies, except for 2. One was filled with various machetes, and the other was converted into an entertainment lounge. The soundproofing was especially good, equipped with a mahjong table, playing cards, a TV, many books, and various complex puzzles. We always need to find something to do, or else people would go crazy. Let's start with mahjong today. At the mahjong table, Wilbert and I were responsible for watching the surveillance at the front door, while my uncle and aunt monitored the back. It's always best to be cautious, but the temperature outside was so low, you couldn't even spot a zombie, let alone a person. 3 months quickly passed. The day Wilbert had died in my previous life arrived. The atmosphere had been somewhat tense, and after lunch, Wilbert and I returned to our room, just as I was about to start a conversation. I was surprised to see the lamp on the bedside table shaking. Is it an earthquake? Wilbert and I exchanged glances. He rushed out and forcefully opened the rear window to look outside. As the window opened, we heard gunfire, the sound of vehicles, and a buzzing overhead. Due to the cold, drones had been out of use for a long time. However, the drone that appeared now was clearly much more powerful. Wilbert and I saw the red flag on it and were overjoyed. Help had arrived. The rescue was here. The frozen zombies were facing their end. 9 months after the apocalypse, the cold wave receded, and the temperature rose. Any remaining zombies spread out again, but this time, with the guard troops present, they were quickly exterminated. Finally, a year after the zombie outbreak, our world regained its former order. The apocalypse is over. Now can you tell me how I died in my last life? I was genuinely curious. But Wilbert, that rascal, still seemed unwilling to answer. He even turned the tables. What's the use of talking about the past life? Let's live well in this life. Or do you think you're a bit idle now? Let's do something less idle right now. Wilbert's thick-skinned nature was only growing, but I liked it. for the rest of my life. I just wanted to be with him. Extra from Wilbert's perspective, Adela had died during the time I went out to gather supplies, holding her cold, stiff body. I gently caressed her face. Don't rub, someone is watching. I wished I could hear that phrase again, but it was no longer possible. She had died, locked outside, frozen to death alive. Before we left, she had still been smiling, saying she wanted something sweet. Yes, the apocalypse was too bitter, a sweet treat to keep going. But now, she had no chance to keep going. Who did this? I asked in a low voice. The dozen people left behind didn't answer. I'll ask again. Who did this? I raised my head to look at the group of people avoiding my gaze. Feeling as if there was a large hole in my chest, the cold air blowing into it, it turns out that in extreme grief, one really can't cry. Now, I only wanted revenge. I would kill the person who caused Adela's death, then go down to join her. Now she must be alone, hungry, cold, and scared. No one will admit it. Then you all deserve to die. I looked at the suddenly pale faces, holding Adela and turning to leave. Some tried to stop me, but having practiced sans ho for over 20 years, no one here was a match for me. After kicking the door open, I turned back to look at those raising weapons at me and coldly said, "You'll regret this, you definitely will." Adela was always seen as the weak link in the team, unable to find supplies, considered useless by the others. But to me, Adela was the best person in the world, my salvation. It was too cold outside, and I feared she might freeze. So I never let her accompany me. That had always been my arrangement. Until something went wrong this time. I refused to believe that Adela didn't call out when she was at the door, yet no one opened it, not a single person. Clearly, I always brought back the most from our outings. Those ungrateful wretches, they all deserved to die. But Adela had told me that killing people was wrong, so I decided to kill zombies instead. People need to drink. And after they mistakenly consumed water contaminated with zombie blood, I swiftly decapitated all of their heads. Now they were zombies, not people anymore. I did listen to Adela, looking at the rolling heads on the ground. I turned back, got into the car, hugged her stiff body, and threw a lit lighter towards the punctured fuel tank. With the fire, maybe Adela would feel a bit warmer. When I opened my eyes again, I was reborn. Half a year before the apocalypse, I warned my parents about the impending apocalypse and concocted a lie. In my past life, Adela had saved me twice, once from zombies and once from the cold, and she had lost her life doing so. Hearing my words, my parents, who already liked Adela, cherished her even more. When preparing supplies, the most frequent question was, would Adela like this? I was very happy. I was eager to keep Adela close, but I was afraid of scaring her. Just half a year. Only half a year of freedom for her. After that, she would be mine forever, all mine. During this half year, I wasn't idle. In my past life, I had a team, and I worked hard to create opportunities for them to be outside when the zombie outbreak occurred. This time, their fate would be left to luck. "Wilbert, go buy me the patched mulberry fruit tea I want to drink," Adela suddenly called out to me. Since she became pregnant, she insisted on having a cup of mulberry fruit tea with patches every day. "Get in the car, let's go together." I was more than happy to pamper her, but I glanced at her slightly protruding belly. When the child is born, I'll leave them to my parents. The martial arts gym has been closed. I need to find something for them to do. "Wilbert, after the child is born, we should take a family picture, the 5 of us, over there," Adela said, pointing in the direction of a lush, vibrant grove of trees. "Sure."